Well, good afternoon, everybody. 307 on Super Talk 99.7. I'm Brian Wilson in the chair for the next 4 hours as we bring you news and information you can use. 28th day of June, and I don't know, how hot is it outside right now. I've been inside for a while, so
Pretty dead gum hot. 93
Yeah.
is what I've got.
93 in the big boss city, nitty gritty city. It's 93 WTN degrees. That's what they would say back in the day. Well, listen, it's going to be hot for the next few days, so let's all be real careful today and tomorrow especially. It seems like we're just in for that. I don't know. I want to start out today. I have so much that I want to talk about with regard to Joe Biden. Much has been said about a picture that was taken this morning of the president as he was going on I think he's on his way to Chicago, gave a speech. But he spoke to reporters on the way out, and two things happened. Number one, there were still photos taken of him very close up that seemed to show that at some point the president of the United States was wearing some kind of mask, and it did sort of look like a CPAP mask straps. If you've ever dealt with the CPAP machine. And, they do leave straps on you, but generally I would think by the time you get up and take your shower and get out the front door, they generally disappear, but they had not disappeared. And so it was noted by reporters, what are these strange strap marks that are on the president's face? Well, we have taken, because, this is not TV, this is radio. We put that picture at the top of yourfarb.com, the link where you can see the weird strap marks. Now, since I think the White House has come out and said, well, the president, he uses a CPAP machine. I think that's news we should have heard in previous medical updates. I think there are real legitimate questions that need to be asked that follow up. Well, is it a CPAP, or is the president sleeping with oxygen at night? That's what I would want to know. Is he being pumped, given oxygen because, they're worried about him getting enough oxygen throughout the night. I mean, that would raise a few questions with me. But the CPAP strap marks, that's the explanation, and you can see them at yourfarb.com, URFARB.com. Find the link to yourfarb.com at 997WTN.com. Then, this is really troubling because as he was talking to reporters, the president of the United States was asked about the situation with Russia, and he said the following.
It's hard to tell, but he's clearly losing the war in Iraq. He's losing the war at home.
Excuse me. He was asked about Russia, and his first words were,
it's hard to tell, but he's clearly losing the war in Iraq. He's losing the war at home.
Putin is not in a war in Iraq. He's in a war with Ukraine. So the president of the United States does not know the difference between Ukraine and Iraq, or that he misspoke, and either explanation, not particularly very good. We have this link also up. If you want to see it, at yourfarb.com, at the top of the page, you can see a link that will take you to this clip.
It's hard to tell, but he's clearly losing the war in Iraq. He's losing the war at home. And he has become a bit of a fly around the world. It's not just NATO. It's not just the European Union. It's Japan. It's 40 nations.
So there he is. He starts out by, number one, showing up in front of cameras with strange marks on his face. Then he makes a statement that suggests that he believes that the people of Russia are at war with Iraq, which is not true. And then he was asked again about the Hunter Biden matter, and were you there in the room while Hunter Biden was texting Chinese officials and shaking them down for money? And he tripled down. He has, I think it's 3 or 4 times now. He said absolutely not.
President Biden, how involved were you in your son's Chinese shakedown text message? Were you sitting there? Were you involved?
No, I wasn't. And I don't.
Were you?
No.
I don't think he got irritated, even yelled at the reporter.
No.
Well,
no.
Yeah, that's the president of the United States yelling at a reporter.
No.
No, he says he wasn't there. He didn't know anything about it. Well, I'm telling you, we're going to have to get down to the bottom of that one for sure. Again, by the way, in that clip, so you got the president of the United States with weird strap marks on his face, which we now have the explanation has come as he uses a CPAP machine. Okay, I have other questions. You got the soundbite where the president believes that that Russia is in a war with Iraq when instead they are in a war with Ukraine, and then he tripled down all in that one little appearance and said that no, he didn't know anything about Hunter Biden and he wasn't there, and he's adamant about it. I don't think you could become any more adamant. No, I don't think you can. But there are some real questions being raised about what was going on and how IRS and now the IRS and FBI whistleblowers who have come forward have made the case that prosecutors pulled their punch on Hunter Biden's investigation and on other investigations that could have opened up a whole lot of avenues of inquiry. They were told that they could not. Now, you're going to hear from a guy named Tristan Levitt, who is an attorney for one of the whistleblowers. Tonight, you got a guy named Shapley, who's a whistleblower, who's going to appear on a special report with Brett Baer, and he's going to have more to say on this. But here is Tristan Levitt, attorney for some of the whistleblowers that are now talking to the House Oversight Committee and Chuck Grassley.
Absolutely. So, for example, the text messages that have been coming out, they're from WhatsApp, actually, as a result of a warrant that the IRS served on Apple for the contents of the iCloud backup for Hunter Biden. Those are a clear example of something where there's a financial nexus. There's something for the IRS to investigate, and prosecutors told them, no, you can't ask any questions about the dad. You can't follow up on those, the location, for instance, geolocation data of where they were sent from.
Well, why not? Why can't you ask follow-up questions about the dad? If the dad is mentioned in the WhatsApp, messages, this is the one where Hunter Biden is trying to shake down a Chinese government official for money, and he says basically, we're not very happy. Dad and I are sitting here talking about the thing that you were supposed to do for us that you haven't done for us. And we want you to do that thing. And we're not very happy that you haven't done that thing. And before this thing spirals out of control, and you don't want that to happen now, do you? Be a shame if something happened and this spiraled out of control. We don't want it to spiral out of control. Dad and I are sitting here by the phone. We need to straighten this out. That's what the message said, paraphrased slightly by me. So that's what he's talking about there. And now what you have here is the attorney for one of the whistleblowers saying, we have this information, and they were told outright, you cannot pursue any questions about the dad, which would be, of course, then Vice President Joe Biden.
There are a host of other examples that are in the transcripts that were released by the Ways and Means Committee recently, but they include turning down subpoenas and search warrants for the Biden family residence, for the Delaware residence. They include tipping off the Bidens for other searches that were intended to be done. In just a host of ways, prosecutors again and again limited the investigation and stopped investigators from doing what they needed to do. The individuals that were shutting this down were from the Delaware U.S. Attorney's Office.
There you go. Now, that's where, this is where it gets again more complicated, because you have the Attorney General of the United States who has said, the David Weiss, this guy, he could go anywhere he wanted to go. He could ask any questions he wanted to go. He could open up any lanes of inquiry that he wanted to open up. He could try a case anywhere he wanted to try it. Well, that's very different than what you're hearing from the IRS agents. They're saying that time and time and time again, they were told, no, you can't do that. No, you can't ask that. No, you can't follow up on that. And you can't bring a felony charge, in another jurisdiction. Well, somebody is not telling us the truth. Either it's either the whistleblowers. Now, I don't know what their motivation would be to tell us something that wasn't true. Or the Attorney General of the United States who said, no, they had full authority to do anything that they wanted to do.
So the IRS was gung-ho, the FBI was gung-ho. It was the Delaware U.S. Attorney's Office where particularly a single assistant U.S. attorney kept saying, no, we're not going to be able to expand those other things. We can't look at the extent beyond just Hunter.
Wow. The fix was in. the fix was in. And it took, for us to learn this much about it, it took some career investigators at the IRS and career investigators at the FBI to come forward and to spill the beans and to point investigators in the House House Oversight Committee and also over in the Senate to give them the sort of the headline. Well, here's where you need to look, and here's the document, and you're going to find this, and you're going to find that. Well, we are getting that. We're getting all that information. It's starting to come in now independently. Here's another one of the main lamestream media members have gotten on board with this story. Although I love the way they do it. New York Times independently verifies IRS whistleblower claim that the DOJ obstructed the Hunter Biden tax probe. The New York Times, the old gray lady, has independently confirmed the authenticity. In the article, New York Times revealed that the IRS whistleblower's testimony was confirmed independently to the New York Times by a person with knowledge of the situation. The paper buried the confirmation, which was the real news of the whole article, 21 paragraphs in. See, when you have to jump on a story because you have poo-pooed the story for a long, long time, you've not covered the story, you've ignored the story, and you have to get caught up quick because you know this is about to become a bigger story, and I think that's what's at play here. You have to bury it in the 21st paragraph because you're admitting that you're wrong, but you don't want it to be that obvious. The confirmation in question is in regards to explosive testimony from multiple IRS whistleblowers that claim Biden's Department of Justice interfered with the federal probe into Hunter Biden's taxes, revealing that United States Attorney David Weiss was blocked by the DOJ from pursuing charges against Hunter Biden in California. They buried all of that confirmation. It's another news organization confirming what others have reported, but a big one. And they buried that 21 paragraphs in. The DOJ's interference also delayed authenticating a WhatsApp message in which Hunter Biden demands payment from Chinese officials, during which he noted that his father was in the room. We've been talking about that one as well. So this is starting to happen. IRS whistleblower and Hunter Biden probe say he was stopped from pursuing investigative leads into Dad or the big guy. This comes from CBS News. See how many people are now scrambling to get onto the story that they have ignored roundly for years, months and years. This is IRS supervisory agent who helped oversee the investigation of Hunter Biden continues to raise questions about what he alleged was special treatment in the probe of the president's son, telling CBS News that dating back to the Trump administration, he was repeatedly prevented from taking steps he would have considered routine in other cases. We have to make sure, as special agent for IRS criminal investigation, that we treat every single person exactly the same, said Gary Shapley, a 14-year veteran of the agency, who spoke exclusively to CBS News correspondent Jim Axelrod on Tuesday. And he goes on to say, that just didn't happen here. This is the same individual I mentioned going to be talking to Brett Baer on Fox News on his show tonight, which I think will be extremely, extremely interesting. So let's just recap. The president appears this morning and shows up in front of cameras, and apparently there was some kind of bizarre mask that was strapped to his face overnight or early morning. I wonder sometimes, I've said this jokingly, but really not too jokingly. Do you think that there are times when they know the president's about to go out and speak, they say, hey, Mr. President, sit down here and take some oxygen before you go out there and sprint out to the aircraft. Have just take a little O2. It'll make you sharp, because they know he's going to go out and say things to reporters. I just wonder, did they just give him a blast of stuff just before he stepped out? I mean, you can't just say, the president, like many Americans, wears a CPAP. That begs a lot of questions. How long has he been wearing a CPAP? Who diagnosed it? What is the diagnosis that required? It's a medical device. You can't get one without having a medical diagnosis. It's like when you get one, it's like a prescription. They have to order it for you, and you just can't go downtown and buy one. So, which doctor put him on it? How long has he been wearing a CPAP machine? What kind of CPAP machine? Because there are many different kinds. Is he also taking oxygen as part of that overnight? I think that would be something we'd all like to know. Okay, within a few moments of that thing, then he starts talking about how it's really a shame that this thing is so confusing over with Russia and Iraq. He's talking about Iraq instead of Ukraine. And we continue to get, verification after verification after verification after verification. I mean, it is there, buddy, every day. Drip, drip, dripping. New information, new little details, all of the stories continually, none of them being knocked back effectively. Now, as we've seen here today, a couple of them are actually being, sort of verified by other organizations. This thing is it's still burbling, but we're going to get some answers, I think. 23 minutes now past the hour of 3 o'clock. Well, listen, let's talk about the folks over at Genesis Diamonds who have a phenomenal sale underway. Clock is ticking on Genesis Diamonds' amazing finance offer. You get until 6 p.m. Saturday. Tick-tock, everybody. Look at the clock to take advantage of the hottest offer of the summer. 5 years, 0% interest financing. Get in now and splurge. Maybe treat yourself. You're planning to propose? Get that stunning designer engagement ring starting as low as $67 a month. Or a 3-carat lab-grown center diamond, just $99 a month. People have driven for hours to take advantage of this sale, so don't put off another minute. Buy that pre-owned Rolex or that designer ring or just a simple diamond pendant. Get the incredible price Genesis is famous for. Then spread your payments over 5 years. 0.0 interest, 5 years, just insane. It's the smartest, easiest, and best way. Nothing down, no interest for 5 years. But hurry, this incredible offer ends on Saturday at 6 p.m. and will not be extended. Only at Genesis Diamonds on approved credit. See store for details.
An Amtrak train derails in California, drugs in Tennessee, and Canadian wildfire smoke continues to swallow skylines all over the United States. Those stories and more coming up at 3:30 right here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
I don't know about you, but this whole misspeaking thing that Biden is doing, and now we find out he's wearing allegedly wearing a CPAP machine. I think there are other questions that need to be asked about that. But I mean, very interesting, nonetheless. And he says that Putin is clearly losing the war in Iraq. Now, listen, everybody can have a bad moment. Everybody can have a misspoken word. Don't get me wrong. I'm in talk radio. I've had my share of them for sure. But this is every single time he gets in front of a camera, we have this problem. And now, here's how they handle it. Reporters handling it this way. Well, Biden was likely talking about Russia's war with Ukraine. Well, yeah, of course, that's what he was supposed to be talking about, but it's not what he said. And it really raises questions about the man's mental acuity. Look, there are a lot of people who take advantage of a CPAP machine, and that helps them, and there are other options as well. For sure, if you listen to this radio station, we talk about the other options all the time. But that comes with a medical diagnosis. We have a president of the United States who goes and has his medical checkups on a regular basis. I don't remember anybody ever sharing with the American people that the president has sleep apnea and that he wears a CPAP machine. Seems like that should have come up, right? Seems like the American people would have the right to that information, but they don't. They keep stuff from you. And I look at these two things as here. Number one, misspeaking, throwing out a wrong word. And we now learn at the same time, the president of the United States apparently wears some kind of mask at night. Although this was, I don't know what time the man got up, but it seems like to me, you get up, you take off your mask, you take a shower, you get dressed for the day, you have a cup of coffee, you have a bite of breakfast, you head to the chopper. And the chopper's out on the lawn, and wouldn't those marks on your face have been gone by then? What? That doesn't add up. That doesn't make any sense. I mean, if you've ever worn like a scuba mask, okay, you wear a scuba mask, it leaves marks where you had the scuba mask on. But you take it off and 4 or 5 minutes later, you can't see those marks. They're gone. So this doesn't add up. It's like so much that's going on right now with this administration. 3:30 on Super Talk 99.7.
Minutes after the hour of 3 o'clock, I'm Mac Morey with your top stories. Right now, 94 degrees, and that number just keeps on ticking up. An excessive heat warning in effect starting tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. That'll last until Friday night, 8 p.m., so stay shaded and hydrated. Right now, 94 degrees. Again, traffic and weather coming up. The extent of injuries is not clear yet after an Amtrak train partially derailed in Moorpark, California today. Alex Stone has the developing details.
As firefighters have been moving from train car to train car, once they've searched a car to make sure there's nobody inside, they spray paint a big X on the side of that train car. A primary search was completed pretty quickly, ruling everybody was out. 3 of the Amtrak cars are tilting onto their sides a bit after the train hit a County of Ventura water truck.
Right now in Tennessee, Fox 17 reports that a felon was arrested for having over 200 grams of marijuana and cocaine. Police noticed a car in a suspicious area with people on either side of the vehicle, so police later conducted a traffic stop. Daryl Humphrey tried to run away, but was eventually caught, and the police restrained him, and police found a gun on Humphrey along with $4,000 in cash. And thick plumes of Canadian wildfire smoke engulfing swaths of the Midwest they're all expected to linger as that smoke spreads east. Alex Perez is in Chicago, where he says the smoke has swallowed up the city skyline.
The mayor's office telling people, if you have respiratory issues, take this very seriously. Even simple things like walking your dog, or if you usually have activities outdoors, they're saying limit those, maybe move those activities inside, because they're afraid what this impact is going to have on some of those people that have issues.
And here in Middle Tennessee, the air quality is still normal in the green or good category. That is the latest news, weather, and traffic next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
You know, this Everseal thing, have you heard me talk about it? You really need to pay attention. This is something pretty cool. What is it? Well, it's a sealant for wood and concrete. But that really doesn't tell the whole story. It really does not. What you need to talk about is how effective this thing can be. This technology has been around forever and used in industrial applications, but the folks at Everseal found a way to use it for your home or business in a way that you can actually afford to do it. So the process starts with a deep cleaning all the way to make your clean and your wood and your concrete look as clean as possible. And then they put their patented seal, which absorbs all the way through to become a permanent part of your wood and concrete to prevent any further deterioration for the next 30 to 50 years. That's right. Think about it. You get a 25-year manufacturer warranty, so you can save it by sealing it one time, and you can be done with it, completely done with it. So think about this. Do you want to spend all your summer hours working on your deck, working on your concrete, or you want to do it one time and then sit back and relax for the next 30 to 50 years? I thought so. Why don't you reach out to my friend Steve Nelson and the team over at Everseal, 844-EVER-USA. That's 844-EVER-USA. Learn more at ever-seal.com. 38 minutes now past the hour, 3 o'clock. Brian Wilson in the chair. You're listening to The Drive on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I want to mention that Senator Bill Hagerty will join us at 4:05, and then we'll be joined by our good friend Pete Hegseth from the Fox and Friends Weekend Edition of, well, it's the Weekend Edition. He's the host of the Weekend Edition of Fox and Friends. How's that? And he'll be with us, also a Middle Tennessee resident, when he's not in New York doing that. He spends a lot of time flying back and forth. I wonder where he is today, because I'm telling him, he usually takes off on, I think, about Wednesday or Thursday to head back. And we've got all kinds of major problems on the East Coast this morning because of bad weather along the I-95 corridor. They got that bridge, by the way, back up and running in Philadelphia in pretty short order. That was pretty cool that they were able to turn that around pretty quickly.
Yeah, amazing how quick they can do something like that, and yet all these potholes just kind of sit there for months and years.
I mean, if you can't throw the worldwide resources of the Department of Transportation at problem and fix a bridge in a few days, seems like, then, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
What kind of, banana republic have we become if we can't handle that? So there's that. But so they were having problems this morning on the East Coast. They're saying a lot of people are going to be traveling. And I think travel's about to change in a big way, and I'd like to ask your question about this, 615-737-9986. Where are you on this whole idea of moving from the internal combustion engine over to an electric vehicle of some kind? Because if you look at what the car dealers are doing, if you look at what the government is saying, this is going to happen a lot quicker than you probably are aware. So give me your thoughts. Are you going to be on board with this as it comes down? Or are you going to resist? 615-737-9986. While I'm waiting on your phone calls to come in, let me share with you the results of this poll on this matter. Most Americans oppose Biden's electric vehicle mandate. President Biden signed an executive order in 2021 establishing a goal for half of all new cars to be sold electric by 2030. Half of all new cars by 2030 they want to have to be electric vehicles. The majority of Americans are not in favor of President Joe Biden's push to mandate electric vehicle quotas in the United States. The poll, conducted by Harvard Capps Harris, was published in June and found that 59% of respondents oppose requiring at least half of all cars sold in America to be electric by 2023. 75% of Republicans don't like the idea, 41% of Democrats, and interestingly enough, in an election cycle, you look at where the independents are, 60% of independents or other voters answered in opposition. In 2021, Biden signed an executive order which included a goal of 50% of all new passenger light trucks sold in 2030 be zero-emission vehicles. The Harvard poll also found Americans are evenly split on the $7,500 EV tax credit that we're talking about here, including 67% of Democrats and 37% of Republicans who support it. Showed a 50-50 divide on whether or not electric cars actually reduce carbon emissions due to the CO2 emitted generated electricity and obtaining the minerals for EV batteries. So when you go into this, you find it that the polling shows that people are not for it. And I'm just curious, are you finding that that's still something that you object to, or is it something that you might consider? I'm sorry. Let's go to Scott in Columbia. Scott, you're up next on The Drive. Hello, Scott. What's your thought about all this?
Brian, so let me get this right. So we're having this big heat wave right now, and yet they want us to conserve electricity. All this EV crap is not going to work, and they know it. The market will decide what happens, period.
Well, I have a hard time disagreeing with that. I mean, especially when they keep telling us, we just saw a thing that came down the other day from something called FERC, which they're the Energy Regulatory Commission, Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, and they have sent out warnings that there's a great number of states across the country this summer that are likely to see brownouts or blackouts and rolling blackouts because they just don't have the ability to provide the kind of electricity that would be needed when temperatures soar up into the 100-degree range, as we're seeing across a good portion of the country right now. So, there's that. How about Brian in Greenbrier? Brian, you're up next on the drive. What do you say, Brian?
Brian, this is Brian, and I like the way you spell your name.
Good. You spelled it yours the right way, apparently. Go ahead.
Yeah, right, not like the wrong. I'm just like the last gentleman. It's not going to work. They speak out of both sides of their mouth. They come up with cute acronyms that are supposed to stand. It's just not practical. And you know what? I said this a long time ago when they first started this crap, where maybe it had 1% of the sales of total vehicles. But, I like to pull up and hear a car. I want to hear what it sounds like when it takes off, a good V8. And I want to see them, burn rubber. But you say that to a guy that owns a Tesla, and he has no comeback because you can't hear it about the sound. It's not. I always say, that's a nice car. And they always say, thanks. And I go, riv it up for me. And they go, what? And I go, that's what I thought. Bye.
That's right. So long. That's right. All right. Thank you so much for that. Stephen in Nashville, you're up next on the drive. Are you okay with this idea? Are you coming around to this idea of having an electric car, or are you still have some quibbles, as apparently in the polling shows many Americans do? Stephen, Nashville, you're up. Well, apparently he can't hear me, or he got shy all of a sudden. Let's go to James. James, you're up next on the drive. What do you have to say, James?
Yes, sir. Thanks for taking my call. No, I'm not in favor of EVs because, as you mentioned earlier, the carbon that's used to make the batteries is just insane. It's used with child labor to make these vehicles, and it's a globalist plan to restrict our movements. Is all it is. They don't want us to have freedom of movement. Trying to take a man's truck is like trying to take his gun.
Well, and some people have said that with these electric cars, that the government might have the ability to say on a day when we're having a very hot day or a very cold day, we're going to be using a lot of electricity, and we're not going to allow you to charge your car on even days or odd days. Now, how's that going to go over? I mean, people are not going to like that at all, for sure. Thank you for the call, man. I appreciate it. Hank in Nashville, you're up next on the drive. What do you say, Hank?
I say that an hour and 45 minutes north of Nashville, there's a town called Glendale, Kentucky, which was very, very tiny. Now there's a area being built to build batteries for the Ford Motor Company that is larger than Cool Springs Shopping Center in Franklin. And I just wanted to point that out. It's been going on. They're going to actually reroute. They're building a new Cloverleaf. They've taken over this whole territory and out about 45 minutes north of Bowling Green.
Well,
it is going to be. I go there quite a bit. I go to Southern Ohio quite a bit, and we were wondering for the longest time what is being built over there. It is these incredibly large frames of buildings, and it's like I said, it's going to be looks bigger than Cool Springs, and they're going to make batteries there for Ford automobiles. And I don't think
that's not the only place. If you may not be aware of it, but they are building Blue Oval City down near Memphis right now. That's where they're going to make batteries, and they're going to make electric cars for Ford, and Ford is investing a lot of money there. I mean, but ultimately, at some point, there's got to be a point where the car manufacturers say, we're spending an awful lot of money investing in building electric cars, and if the polling data are right, then we are finding that we're building a product that nobody really wants to that degree. And so it will have to be forced down the throats, and then once that happens, the whole way that we get around the country and maybe even our freedom of movement could be well impacted. Okay, we got time for Melissa at Antioch. Hey, Melissa, you're up on the drive. What do you say, Melissa?
Hi, it's Elissa, actually. But, okay, so two things. I'm an engineer, and I think that the electric vehicles are impractical for two reasons. One is that they actually use more carbon emissions than a gas vehicle per mile driven due to the coal that it takes to run the power plant to generate the electricity to charge them. So hybrid vehicles actually are a much better combination because it can charge from actually just the driving of the car. So electric vehicles do not actually reduce carbon emissions. They do while they're driving, but it gets worse while you're charging. The second reason is that the batteries don't run for very long. Like my roommate, her parents have an electric vehicle, and she drove from Chicago to Nashville. So that should have been a 7-hour drive, and it took them 9 because they had to stop twice to charge the car for an hour. Like, nobody has time to do that.
Wow. So in a trip from Chicago to Nashville, 2 stops for charging. I
Two
assume you
stops
started
for an hour long each to charge.
So there's 2 hours lost just sitting at the road at a Buc-ee's. That's what you're doing probably. The Buc-ee's thing. The Buc-ee's people have seen this. I've been looking around corners on this. They see this coming. All right, thank you. We got time for one more. Mike in Murfreesboro, you're up with next on the drive. What do you say, Mike?
I love my Tesla. We've been having it for about 5 months. We've saved $2,000 in gasoline. We drive 80 miles back and forth a day to work. Have not a problem with our Tesla. It's a great vehicle. The only thing I can say was we didn't have a spare tire when we need one. We had a flat. But other than that, we love our Tesla. It's,
now, you do about 80 miles round trip, 40 miles in, 40 miles out?
Every day.
And no problems?
Not a problem at all.
Have you tried to do a long distance trip?
Yeah, we went, well, I mean, I don't really consider McMinnville a long distance, but I mean, we go around to the surrounding counties. We still have a combustion car. We're planning a trip to Panama City Beach, go 231 all the way down. You find where your chargers are, and you just go there. I mean, it is what it is.
I would be interested to hear, if you make, I know that trip to Panama City Beach, as I used to own property down there, went quite a bit from Nashville down there. I want to have a conversation with you. Reach out to me after you've made that trip and tell me if you feel the same way. I'd be curious to know.
I'll do it.
I really, sincerely love to know. All right, thank you so much. 50 minutes now past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. Have you ever thought about why we invest in the stock market? Well, you often hear because we want to protect ourselves from inflation. Well, what is inflation? It's prices going up. Who's raising prices? Companies. What do you own when you own stocks? You own the companies raising prices, so it helps protect us from that. The other thing is this. Think about the most successful people you know. They're typically business owners. And you get to be a business owner when you invest in the stock market. Now, if we think about the stock market, a lot of people worry about, well, what if the stock market drops and it never comes back? Well, this is another thing that I like to explain to people. If the stock market goes down and it never comes back, what does that mean? That means that earnings went down and they never came back up again. So earnings went down. If earnings go down, what else goes down? Taxes go down. If taxes go away, what else goes away? The government goes away. If the government goes away, the FDIC goes away. So think about it. Everything is built on the stock market. That's why I don't ever worry about the stock market going down. Everybody has the same goal in mind when stocks go down. Get it to come back up because we got to get earnings to come back up. Now, you have 2 things at your control to get earnings to come back up. One is sales. We can change what we're selling or sell more of whatever we have if we can. And if we can't do that, we can reduce our expenses. And that's exactly what companies do. You'll notice that they lay off people when things get bad, and hence that is why the stock market has recovered from every downturn throughout all of history. Now, if you want to learn more about our approach to investing in financial planning, go to paulwinkler.com and set up a free 15-minute phone call or call 615-851-1950.
Some news concerning President Biden and his health, and along with Bidenomics. Plus, we look at Daniel Penny, the former Marine who was seen on video putting a fellow subway rider in a fatal chokehold. He pled not guilty today. That and more coming up at 4. Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
The markets are now. Dow Jones Industrials closed the day down 74 points. S&P down about 1.5 points. NASDAQ up 36. So not a lot of movement in the markets today, but a mixed boards. Let's talk to John Maxon over at Beacon Capital Management. John, what is driving the markets today?
Yeah, I'll tell you, Brian, kind of a flat day in the market as we head into July. You know, July has been historically one of those months where the market's been pretty uneventful, but last July it was actually up about 9%. So it's going to be interesting to see if the tech stock rally can continue upholding sort of the market going forward. And a couple things that we're going to be watching is second quarter earnings that'll be coming out towards the middle to end of the month. And again, a lot of this really boils down to, can the market and the consumer continue to absorb central banks across the world really that are just bent on continuing to raise interest rates, which could control or could slow growth. So those are things that are going to be driving it in July.
All right. Thank you very much, John Maxon. And learn more about all the things they can do for you at Beacon Capital Management by going to their website, askbeaconnow.com. 58 minutes now past the hour.
It's 4 o'clock. I'm Mac Morey with your top stories. 94 degrees, and it's going to get even steamier. Got an excessive heat warning in effect starting tomorrow at 11 a.m. That'll go until Friday at 8 p.m. Complete weather and traffic report just a few minutes away. President Biden speaking today in Chicago, touting Bidenomics ahead of the 2024 election. Lindsay Watts.
The president says Bidenomics is about building the economy from the middle out and the bottom up, not the top down. Biden highlighted the 13 million jobs added during his presidency and record low unemployment.
And I'm not here to declare victory on the economy. I'm here to say we have a plan that's turning things around incredibly quickly. But we have more work to do.
The speech comes after a new ABC News Washington Post poll that shows those surveyed believe President Trump did a better job than Biden handling the economy.
And now going over to New York City, Daniel Penny, the former Marine who was seen on video putting a fellow subway rider in a fatal chokehold, pleading not guilty to 2 charges today. Penny is accused of killing subway performer Jordan Neely, who witnesses say was acting erratically on May 1st when Penny intervened. Aaron Katursky has more on how both the defense and the prosecution might use Penny's statements to police in an upcoming trial.
He's quoted saying that he immediately threw his stuff down, saying he didn't care if he went to jail, being verbally perhaps threatening, but not physically threatening. There was never any indication that he was actually violent. So these statements cut 2 ways. The defense can say that Penny wasn't trying to hide his conduct. He was matter of fact with police and believed he was responding to a legitimate threat against other passengers. Prosecutors can say there was no real threat. It was just a guy shouting on the train, and he didn't have to die.
And this just in the entertainment world, famous artist Madonna is still hospitalized due to a bacterial infection. She was sent to the ICU on Saturday and since has been released, but still under a doctor's care at that hospital. Her upcoming celebration tour has been put on pause due to this. It was supposed to begin on July 15th. And here in Tennessee, a benefit night is being held to honor the victims of the Covenant School shooting and to raise money for mental health support to the Covenant School community. And some of the biggest country stars will perform at the Grand Ole Opry House at this benefit, including Morgan Wallen and Jason Aldean. The event will take place on August 7th at the Grand Ole Opry, and tickets go on sale at 10 a.m. on June 30th. That is the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Well, it's 7 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. You're listening to The Drive. We're in the chair and on the air till about 7 o'clock tonight on this 28th day of June. You may, if you've been moving about the metro area, you may have crossed paths. I don't know. Maybe it's possible you saw Senator Bill Hagerty because he's out there with you. He's out there driving the highways and the byways as part of his big economic development tour. And he's been talking to people about how they look at the situation with, I guess, the economy and business going forward. He joins us now on the Newsmaker Hotline to talk about that and a whole lot of other stuff, Senator. I got on my list of questions to ask you about that. So first of all, you are talking to business leaders out there. What are you hearing?
Well, it's been great to be back home, Brian. I started out up in Northeast Tennessee and making my way across the state today. This morning I was in Middle Tennessee, out in White Bluff at Bordeaux Metals. Later in the day I was in Ashland City at Cayman Boats. Just left Amazon's headquarters there in Nashville. Talking with all of them about the growth that they're trying to undertake, the fact that, frankly, in Tennessee, we have it a lot better than most other states, but there's still challenges here that we're confronting, and those challenges have a great deal to do with failed policies from the Biden administration that are hampering businesses all over the United States. There I'm talking about the war that Biden has waged on domestic energy. I'm talking about massive new regulations, and the fact that Biden is out, quote, touting his economic successes when he set off the most incredible round of inflation that we've seen in 40 years. It's just like he's living on a different planet. That's not the world that Tennessee businessmen and women are experiencing right here.
Yeah, you have the president talking about Bidenomics, which I think has a negative connotation in my book. But he's saying, it's not working yet, but we're really, 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 really close. We're starting to see some signs that maybe soon it might start working. And they can't really point to anything that has been truly successful. And certainly we have seen, the average business owner seems to be really struggling just to stay above water these days. What about the labor market very quickly on that? Because I know everywhere I talk to people who are in business right now, they're talking about how they need people to work. Well, we have a lot of people who are available to work, apparently, but they're not working. What's going on with that?
Well, business owners are telling me that they're just tired of competing with the federal government. I was talking with one of our leading Tennessee businessmen earlier this week, and he was telling me about how he had an employee for a number of years. The fellow figured out after an injury, although he's been able to overcome that. He had a stroke, but he was able to find a way to get onto permanent disability. Just there's so many programs now that people can get onto very easily under this administration, and there's just this culture now that has been, I think, deepened significantly with all the stimulus dollars, et cetera, extensions of unemployment, telling students they don't have to pay their loans back, all of this government largesse that's being passed around that's created among certainly not every worker in Tennessee, but among some, that they're better off, finding a way to get the government to tote the note for them, to get the government to foot the bill, and not to work. And that's just a terrible sort of mindset to be incentivizing here. I mean, there's real dignity to work, Brian, as you and I both know, and that's the path upward in America.
I feel that way, and I know you do. Okay, so you started to say something, and I cut you off. I want to make sure you get your point across.
I just think you talked about the success that Biden is touting. I think the only real success that Joe Biden has had with respect to the economy is this Orwellian mischaracterization of numbers that the media tends to pick up on. I mean, he's going around and touting the fact that inflation is down. No, inflation isn't down. It's just not growing as rapidly as it was when you set it off. They are basically repackaging, quote unquote, everything, talking about all this job creation. The vast majority of the jobs that he's taking credit for are just people coming back to work after the pandemic. This is not anything that Joe Biden has done. It's in spite of what Joe Biden has done. If you think about it, he's complaining about the, quote, the Trump tax cuts from the 2017 jobs and tax reform bill. The biggest beneficiary of the tax cuts under President Trump were the lowest income Americans. The people that got the lowest increase, so obviously the lowest benefit as a percentage, were the higher income Americans. But in the Biden world, everything gets flipped upside down. Everything is misinformation. As I said, it's like George Orwell was writing the script for Joe Biden.
Well, speaking of our president, before he headed off to Chicago to give his speech, he was stopped outside the White House, just outside the White House door before he got on the helicopter. And I don't know if you've heard this or not, Senator, but I'm going to play it for you so you're up to speed.
Okay.
He was asked a question about Russia, but listen very carefully to his answer.
It's hard to tell, but he's clearly losing the war in Iraq. He's losing the war at home.
Did you catch that? He said he was asked about Russia, and he said, "Well, they're clearly having trouble." And then he went on to say, they're losing the war in Iraq. I'll play it one more time.
It's hard to tell, but he's clearly losing the war in Iraq. He's losing the war at home.
Well, nobody that I know of is aware of any war between Russia and Iraq right now. The president clearly misspoke again. It was on the same day we learned that apparently the president sleeps with a CPAP machine. And the only reason we know that is because he was seen this morning up close by photographers, and he still had the strap marks in his face, from sleeping all night with with the CPAP mask on. So, I mean, that's a medical device. You have to have basically a prescription to get one. These things keep coming out every day. It's like, what's going to happen next? What kind of thing is the president going to say? What is the sense in Washington right now about whether or not we have a president who's in charge and able to make the tough decisions, like he might have had to have faced this past weekend with Russia and what was going on with the Wagner Group?
Yeah, it's been a concern since back in the campaign, Brian. And neither you nor I wish any ill health to Joe Biden. I feel sorry for any health ailments that he's got, but he's the commander-in-chief of the United States, and he was running for that position from his basement back in 2020. They did everything they could to shield him from criticism, to shield him from scrutiny, to shield him from exposure to the American public, and then they turn around and expect the American public to vote for him. There's so many things that they buried. We're finding out about Hunter Biden's laptop, more and more,
right.
The things that we should have known that we didn't know, but they do everything they can to keep Joe Biden out of the mainstream. They've got these unelected staff that are all retreads from Obama that are back in office again, and they're pushing this ideological agenda, and Joe Biden seems to me to be just going along with it. I think he is just, a figurehead in many, many respects, as opposed to the person that's really, knuckling under, making the tough decisions, et cetera, et cetera. And when we hear this misspeaking taking place, you get the White House staff comes back and, walks it back. 4 times now he said that the United States would come to the aid of Taiwan if China were to, come across the Taiwan Strait into Taiwan. And each time the White House staff, well, no, he didn't really mean that. I mean, this is not the way to run the largest, most significant country in the world. Yet this is the type of leadership we've got.
Well, and yeah, that's look, there's some evidence that suggests that there was a pay-to-play scheme. It seems that Chuck Grassley and James Comer over in the House Oversight Committee are coming up with good data. You've got whistleblowers coming out with, again, more stories today suggesting that the investigation that was conducted into Hunter Biden didn't go very far because there were a great number of times where the Department of Justice shut them down. What's going on in this country if that's allowed to happen, where the DOJ says, I'm sorry, no, you can't investigate that matter?
And Brian, back last year when I had Attorney General Merrick Garland in front of me, I just posed a question to him. I said, how do you do this? How do you as Attorney General investigate your boss when he has the ability to fire you? If you want to keep your job, that's pretty tough. He assured me, no. This Mr. Weiss, the U.S. Attorney from Delaware, has complete authority, and I'm staying out of it. The White House is not involved. He's got complete authority to prosecute this as he wishes. Then we find out from the whistleblowers, who have no incentive to lie. In fact, they have every incentive to just stay quiet. The whistleblowers come forward, and again, there are multiple whistleblowers corroborating one another, that indeed the political appointees at the Department of Justice were stepping in, were shutting down the investigation, were constraining it, letting the statute of limitations run out. It sure seems to me that what the Attorney General said doesn't square with the truth, and that is a huge problem for him when you think about that. So
what? When I hear people, though, when I talk to people about it, and I tell these stories every day. I mean, just about every day there's a new development, a new drip to the story, and people say to me, "Yeah, but Wilson, nothing's going to get done." And I have a hard time coming back with a good defense on that. What would you say?
far more difficult to get things done than I ever imagined, Brian. You know, I'm not a politician. The first time I ever ran for office was for the current position I hold. I've been there for 2.5 years, and I've just been in shock at the power of this unelected bureaucracy and about the friction that they can put into play. When you see a business person like me coming in, you want to see results, and all they do is try to stymie that. And they take a real position. They're putting their finger on the scale. But you see things happening as slow as possible, as you say, drip, 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 when it comes to, you know, the Democrat commander-in-chief. But when it comes to his main opponent, Donald Trump, they're accelerating everything like crazy. And the American public's too smart for this. They see this two-tiered system of justice unfolding. I think we're sickened by it. It's something that I don't think the Democrats are going to be able to maintain politically, but it's something that we've got to push back on this unelected bureaucracy that have given them the ability to do this for so long.
All right, put on your thinking cap with regard to politics for a moment. I'm making the prediction on this program that I do not think that Joe Biden will ultimately be the nominee for Democrats. But my sense of it, I'm not sure how it ends up being the case, but that they'll find a way to let him off the hook easily, and that somebody else will emerge. Who that is just now, I'm not real clear. But what's your assessment of what the Democrats might do across the as you look across the aisle?
Well, it's very difficult for me to agree with that right now, Brian. Not because I don't think that wouldn't be better for the country, because I think you're right. But the Democrats have gotten away with pushing the pendulum so far left under Joe Biden. They're getting no resistance from the commander-in-chief. What you have are theologians and ideologues that are able to shove this thing as far left as they possibly can. I could not have imagined the amount of damage that they've been able to accomplish in 2.5 years, yet they've done it. So I think the extreme left is probably thrilled to have Joe Biden in office. From a practical standpoint, though, and I think this is probably where your mind is, when the Democrat political powers that be look at this and they say, look, Joe Biden's numbers are in the tank. Joe Biden's going to have a hard time winning the general election. That may be what moves them in the direction that you're describing. That practical reality of the fact that the American public just can't withstand another 4 years of Joe Biden, and that's going to manifest itself when the polls come out. Closer and closer we get to the election.
Yeah.
I mean, his number, he's upside down right now. So that may be that the politics of it may be the reason that some of the powers that rule in the Democrat Party may step up and come up with an alternative. Joe Biden has been so bad for the country, and again, the American public is got to wake up to this.
Yeah, I'm disheartened to hear you say after 2.5 years you can't believe how difficult it is to get things accomplished and how much damage that can be done in that short amount of time. I was there 31, and I never ever have seen it as bad as we see it now. And by the way, speaking of Joe Biden, his numbers are in the tank. Kamala Harris has the lowest negative numbers in the history of all vice presidents right now.
Well, that was a very salient point you made. It's hard to say who it would be other than Joe Biden, but she'd be the last person they'd want. Don't you agree?
Yeah, I absolutely agree on that. I don't know. I'm not sure how it's going to play out, but I think it will. But we'll see. Senator, it's always a pleasure to have you on the program. It's great to talk to you. Please don't be a stranger. We appreciate you here on Super Talk.
Likewise, Brian. All the best. Thank you.
All right. It is 20 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk. You know, the Wellness Institute of Nashville is a proud sponsor of The Drive, and we're so happy to have them as one of our sponsors. Listen, they have a 1776 Patriot Special going on in honor of the upcoming Independence Day holiday. The Wellness Institute, Dr. Kevin Mitchell, Dr. Ashley Mitchell, want to offer all patriots and conservatives a special. At your first appointment, $17.76. It includes a consult, x-rays, or you can bring in your x-rays, or you can bring in an MRI, and they'll go over it, come up with a healing plan for you, a therapeutic plan to get better. And if you mention your favorite host, hint, hint, they will even give you an additional 10% off future services. Listen, the spinal decompression, you've heard me talk about it. I've gone through it. It helped me. They have a thing also for knees that works much the same way, gently elongates the knee so that you can get the therapeutic treatment into those lower tissues inside the knee. It works, and I think you're going to be very happy if you go through this. You'll see good results. 615 246-5009. Learn more about all the things they can do for you at the Wellness Institute of Nashville by going to their website, painisbad.com.
Some President Biden health news. NES pausing disconnections due to the crazy heat here in the mid-state. And we'll also have today's money news. Those stories and more coming up 4:30. I'm Mac Morey right here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It's always good to have Senator Haggerty come by and visit with us. And it's disheartening to hear somebody who's been there 2.5 years. You go in with great hope, and you take the oath of office, and you say, I'm gonna go in here and do this thing, this being a senator for 6 years, and to hear him say how discouraging it is to see the struggle. And I agree. To me, it seems, and again, I haven't been in Washington now for about nearly what? Gosh. 8 years or something like that, 6 years, 7 years. But it seems to me that what's going on there is much more corrosive and much more ugly than the things that I used to witness on a regular basis. It really has devolved in so many different ways. This story from the Washington Times, I just think it's interesting, and I don't know why this is. Mac Morey, maybe you're the young man of the group, or the younger man of the group.
Yeah, thanks for clarifying that.
Well, I'm not the young guy anymore. A record number of U.S. 40-year-olds have never married, and most live alone, according to a new analysis by the Census Bureau that goes back more than a century. Pew Research reported that 25% of 40-year-olds in 2021 had never been married, which is up from 20% alone with just 22%. So, I mean, if you're 40 years old, there's a quarter of you out there who have never been married at that age, not even one time. 40 years completed a bachelor's degree, much higher than it was in 1980, 39% versus 18%. But I mean, more highly educated 4-year-olds are more likely to have been, more highly educated 40-year-olds are likely to have been married, but the growth of this group has not reversed the trend of delaying or foregoing marriage. What's on with that? What do you think? What is? I mean, do you among your younger friends, are they putting it off, or are they just not interested?
That's actually, wow, that's a really good point. Honestly, a lot of my friends, I'm lucky I have an amazing girlfriend, but a lot of my friends that don't and aren't as lucky, I mean, it just feels like, yeah, like we've talked about Tinder and those different online dating apps. It seems like that's kind of the route that they go, and it's just kind of harder to find something that sticks, I guess.
The hookup society,
Yes.
the culture has kind of changed things, I would say. You know, Brian, I've got a couple of my wife's cousins. They are the same age as we are, so they're both in our early to mid 40s. Both of them, they're the brothers. They didn't start families, get settled down and start families until they were in their late 30s, early 40s. So just in the last few years. And that's very interesting to me because, you know, I didn't start early, but I have a almost 16-year-old son. And I wasn't, it's not like I was, you know, fresh out of high school when I got married and had a family. I was in my mid 20s when I got married, late 20s when I had my first child. But they're just starting families in their 40s. So it's definitely, something is different now.
Well, and and that means you have later in life moms and later in life dads. And I don't necessarily think that's a bad, I was a late in life dad, but I married the first time at age 23. And I go going, what in the hell were you thinking, Wilson?
Well, also, I think people my age have been told since we were 8 years old how the divorce rate's going up. So maybe that's making people a little more hesitant, scared.
Or maybe they see it in their own experience.
Yeah.
They've witnessed it and they don't want that to happen to them. I don't know. Maybe that's true. Maybe that's something about it. This is interesting, though, that you have so many people that are now, you know, deciding, you know, marriage is not that important to me. I can, if I find the right one and I feel like it's right, then I'll get married. But I don't feel that I have to get married, and that's what I'm hearing from a lot of the younger people that I know. Yeah, you know, not all that in a hurry to do it.
Yeah, there's not that same pressure that there once was. I guess that's what you do. You grow up, you go to school, you get married and start a family. It's not that way anymore.
So you know what the downside to being a late in life parent is that you are late in life getting your kid through college, as I am finding out.
Yep.
It is now 4:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
"30 minutes after the hour of 4 o'clock, Mac Maury with your top stories. 94 degrees, and that sun ain't going nowhere. Excessive heat warning in effect starting tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. until Friday night at 8 p.m. Full weather forecast, latest traffic report on the way. And like millions of Americans, President Biden uses a CPAP machine to treat his sleep apnea. The White House made that announcement today. Andy Field.
As he left the White House, reporters saw visible CPAP machine marks on the president's face. His press aides then announced Mr. Biden routinely uses continuous positive airway pressure, or CPAP masks, to make sure he gets enough oxygen while he sleeps. The president has had a number of sinus and nasal surgeries to help relieve the symptoms.
Here in Tennessee, starting today, Nashville Electric Service will pause disconnection of service for non-payments due to the extreme heat on the way. NES says it still wants to make sure everyone is safe, so if you have problems paying your bill, NES says to give them a call. And over to the money news, Daria Albinger walks us through what happened today on the market.
Stocks closed mixed as the indices drifted between small gains and losses. The Dow fell 74 points. The Nasdaq rose 36. The S&P gave up 2. Earnings season rolls on with Micron reporting after the close its latest earnings, beating analysts' expectations. The Fed releasing the results of its annual stress test, and all of the banks surveyed remained above the central bank's minimum capital requirements. Well, we've been hearing the warnings for more than a year about a recession, if not this quarter, then next quarter or the quarter after that, or maybe next year. But so far it hasn't arrived. Despite much higher borrowing costs, thanks to the Fed's aggressive interest rate hikes, consumers keep spending and employers keep hiring. In other words, the economy keeps growing. Now more economists say the U.S. may avoid a recession. The economy may instead have a soft landing it could recover from relatively easily.
And that is the latest news. Traffic and weather on the way. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
It's 37 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Brian Wilson in the chair. And we're bringing you news and information all the way till 7 o'clock, where we then hand it off to the great one, Mark Levin. We are waiting any moment now. And he's coming in now as we speak. He's just as reliable as the sun going up in the east in the morning and in the west in the evening. Pete Hegseth is standing by.
Not quite. Glad to be here.
Yeah, it's good to have you. So there are a lot of things I want to talk to you about. First of all, it was good to lay eyeballs on you and say hello, shake your hand the other day down at the Pancake Pantry. Yeah, that was a nice deal that you did there. And I know that you've been taunting us with an announcement, and I think I've seen the results of the announcement. So I think you can talk about it now, perhaps.
I think you have. Yes, we did break it on this show, though. Yeah, we're doing the Patriot Awards, which are our flagship event for Fox Nation, is going to be at the Grand Ole Opry here in Nashville on November 16th. So we're psyched to do it. And we hope your folks will come out.
Well, I know that my folks want to come out. How do they go about that? Did you have any information, guidance you can give us?
Two parts. First of all, tickets are not on sale yet, but you can go to foxnation.com/Patriot Awards, and you can register to get the first email to sign up to guarantee a spot. But also, for the first time, we're accepting submissions or nominations for people who want to nominate someone to receive an award. So you can go to the website, if you know someone in your life who's gone above and beyond, to nominate them.
I want to touch base with you and tap into your military experience and expertise with what happened this past weekend. I mean, it's incredibly scary to think about how easily things might have spiraled out of control. And when you have the Wagner Group breaking loose and heading for Moscow, I mean, headed straight for Moscow, not knowing exactly what was going to happen. It all sort of got resolved in some way peaceably. But I mean, there for a while, nobody knew exactly what was going on, and we were doing everything we can to reassure the Russians, hey, we don't know what this is, and we're not involved in it. What a scary situation, especially when you add into the factoring of all this that you have a president of the United States who doesn't even know it. Today he said he's apparently the Russians are losing the war in Iraq. I mean, that's how clued in he is. Have you not heard this? Let me just play real quick. He's walking outside of the White House, and this is what he said.
It's hard to tell, but he's clearly losing the war in Iraq. He's losing the war at home.
He's losing the war in Iraq, and he's losing the war at home, talking about Putin. So, I mean, this thing could have really gone badly.
Yeah, you sure could have. I mean, we were covering it over the weekend in real time, and it felt like a movie script. The most effective general on the front line for the Russians. Now, he's been grousing for months about a lack of supplies, about a lack of ammunition, a lack of support for his guys on social media, gaining this big following as the only critic of a war that's clearly going sideways for Russia. And then he decides to turn around and take over the defense headquarters overseeing Ukraine and head toward Moscow. Obviously, the coup didn't happen, or the takeover that he wanted didn't happen. He's a longtime Putin ally. But even if he wasn't trying to target Putin, which he was very clear in his criticism of the Ministry of Defense, he weakened Putin because Putin is, now he's forced him into exile in Belarus, it appears, from what we're hearing. And Putin looks like a guy who's, suffering under internal rebellion, unable to win the war, and now without his most capable division in the field. We'll see how long this guy has on Earth, or if he's able to truly secure himself and continue to gain a following as a critic of the conduct of the war. Either way, it doesn't feel like we're anywhere close or anywhere near a resolution for a proxy war, which is what it is. And we're fighting a proxy war with a president who, there's nothing to say. I mean, he's just not there.
Well, I know he's not there. And what scares me is you're talking about Russia, the United States, two nuclear powers. You've got some kind of rebel action going on. Not clear in the early hours exactly what was happening, and we've not had the greatest relationship with the Russians of late. Obviously, they don't pick up the phone very often, but they apparently were able to get some phone calls in and say, "Yeah, okay, it's not you. Thank you very much. We're very busy right now. Go away." I just, I see when you have a president who has to make some really tough decisions sometimes in moments like this, who is completely not up to the task, It seems to me I can put out about a dozen scenarios of how this thing could have gone horribly wrong. I mean World War III wrong.
Oh, absolutely. And then add on top of it any sort of judgment call that would have to be made over the dispute over Taiwan, which our position is already ambiguous, yet rhetorically he's confused it. And the Chinese are seeing all of this, and this may be their moment to move. He's not running the show. So who is running the show? We deserve to understand and to know who he is. And I don't know how a Democrat today can be comfortable, not just with him as the candidate, but with the condition of our country and our national security with him at the helm. It could have gone entirely wrong. We're talking nukes, we're talking miscalculations, and the bureaucracy of the government is running the government, not the president.
Yeah, well, it seems to be that is the case, and today came word that apparently, and the only reason we know this now, again, Pete, I hate to question every single thing that comes out, but it doesn't add up to me. He's coming out of the White House, and they got some still cameras that are very close to him that seem to pick up what look like strap marks across his chin, across his forehead, and it becomes then they have to answer the question, what were the strap marks? It's very clear in the pictures. And they said, well, he uses the CPAP machine. Okay, well, that's a medical device. That requires basically a doctor to make a diagnosis, and you have to go through a bunch of testing. We've never heard anything about that. Second, and beyond that, one wonders, okay, so you get up, you take a shower, you put on your clothes, you have a bite of breakfast, and you start to head out to the chopper. I don't know. Most people I know, after, let's say, 25, 35, 40 minutes, even an hour, those marks would not still be on your face.
Yeah.
I mean, it just raises, you have to question everything that this White House tells you.
It's a giant cover-up, top to bottom. Cover-up for his incapability, cover-up for their family business dealings. I hope there's a group. Well, first of all, any intrepid journalist could they wouldn't win a Pulitzer because they don't give them out for criticism of Democrats, but they would do groundbreaking work if they actually did investigative journalism, either into the medical condition of Joe Biden, because there are people in the inner circle who really know how bad it is. And there will be books written after this presidency about how bad it was, about Weekend at Bernie's, about how they managed him. There's an arrogant books about how, we needed Biden. We couldn't let anything else happen. So we did this for the American people, arrogant books about that. And then, we've been covering all the Hunter stuff. I mean, how long can he say I didn't know anything? Problem is, it's the only thing he can say, because once he admits he did know something, then the whole thing's a lie the whole time. So he'll keep saying it even when the evidence comes out, which it will, and we'll see if the press ever really zeroes in on it.
Well, it's entirely possible that in his mind he didn't, because he doesn't remember. I mean, that's the thing he can always claim.
Good point.
Maybe I did that. I don't recall it. But they said that I did, and well, maybe I did. I don't know. Look, if you or I have a bad day, it's one bad broadcast. It's probably not the end of the world. But when you're talking about the leader of the free world, and like an example of some of the things that happened this past weekend, you're talking about somebody who has his finger on the nuclear button, the person who has to answer that phone at 2:00 in the morning, when all of the aides and assistants aren't around and aren't awake. I fear greatly that we're going to get ourselves in a real mess here, because he's just simply not up to the task, and they can't be with him 24/7 every moment of the day. And the times that we see him out there in the public, certainly there's enough there to raise concern.
I share your concern, but I don't think he ever is alone. I don't think he's running the show. I think they trot him out when they need to. They tell him where to go, who to stand, who to talk to.
Maybe you're right.
They certainly wouldn't leave him alone with the button. Someone's telling him you can or can't. He's not making any calls. That's an even scarier part of this scenario, because someone unelected with savvy is playing this fiddle.
So who really is the president is the big question, right? Well, I mean, you mentioned the Hunter Biden stuff. I mean, the whistleblowers, I see Brett Baer's got one of the IRS whistleblowers on his show tonight, which should be very interesting, because they've been very interesting when they've come out and talked about it. But it seems very clear that somebody is not telling the truth, and it's either David Weiss, the person who's in charge of the investigation in Delaware of Hunter Biden's tax activities, or it's the Attorney General of the United States, because they're both saying different things and they both can't be. Somebody's not telling us the truth and somebody's lying to us.
And they've said different things at different times. So the readout from the whistleblower, confirmed by others there, said that David Weiss said his hands were tied, but at other times he's written that he had full authority. And you're not. My experience is at a candid meeting and you're grousing, you're not gonna declare how little power you have unless you really don't have it. And is it Merrick Garland, or does he have a cutout, a deputy under there who's managing traffic on the whole thing underneath him, so he can have plausible deniability and say I didn't affect it, when everybody knows with a wink or a nod or a suggestion or a handshake, the understanding could be this goes no further. And that's why these things become so difficult to unravel. I mean, these text messages are damning. They're devastating for Hunter and Joe.
I know.
It's just the cover-up is what they're trying to prevent the public from seeing.
Yeah, well, me and Dad were sitting here and we were having a conversation about you and that thing that you were supposed to do for us that you haven't done. Sure would be a shame if there were some. It's almost like dialogue out of The Godfather.
It is. You know what they're going to do? They're going to throw the drug addict under the bus, though. You already saw it from the lawyers on Hunter. Yeah. Oh, well, how can you? And so they'll say, well, he said a lot of things, but Joe didn't know, and he did it for himself. That's how they'll try to get out of it. Not
All
true,
right.
but they'll try.
All right, Pete Hegseth, it's always a pleasure. I will see you this weekend on Fox and Friends.
You got it, Brian. Thank you.
All right, bye-bye. It is now 49 minutes past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. Have you ever thought about why we invest in the stock market? Well, you often hear because we want to protect ourselves from inflation. Well, what is inflation? It's prices going up. Who's raising prices? Companies. What do you own when you own stocks? You own the companies raising prices, so it helps protect us from that. The other thing is this. Think about the most successful people you know. They're typically business owners. And you get to be a business owner when you invest in the stock market. Now, if we think about the stock market, a lot of people worry about, well, what if the stock market drops and it never comes back? Well, this is another thing that I like to explain to people. If the stock market goes down and it never comes back, what does that mean? That means that earnings went down and they never came back up again. So earnings went down. If earnings go down, what else goes down? Taxes go down. If taxes go away, what else goes away? The government goes away. If the government goes away, the FDIC goes away. So think about it. Everything is built on the stock market. That's why I don't ever worry about the stock market going down. Everybody has the same goal in mind when stocks go down. Get it to come back up, because we got to get earnings to come back up. Now, you have two things at your control to get earnings to come back up. One is sales. We can change what we're selling or sell more of whatever we have if we can. And if we can't do that, we can reduce our expenses. And that's exactly what companies do. You'll notice that they lay off people when things get bad, and hence that is why the stock market has recovered from every downturn throughout all of history. Now, if you want to learn more about our approach to investing in financial planning, go to paulwinkler.com and set up a free 15-minute phone call, or call 615-851-1950.
Some big decisions to come tomorrow in the Supreme Court. Rolling blackouts could be a reality yet again here in Tennessee. And the first baby box right here in the mid-state. Those stories and more coming up at 5 o'clock. I'm Mac Morey right here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
You know, we talked about this picture that's out there of President Biden with the mask straps marks on his face. You can go to yourfarm.com and see a picture of that. We've got a link that'll take you right to it. I mean, it's very clear. So understand, I think this is about 8 o'clock this morning. I don't know what time the president gets up. I mean, I don't keep his schedule. But let's just run through this, okay? You get up, all right? Generally, a man of his age, certain things need to be taken care of, right? Right away, right? We all can agree on that. I don't know how long that takes, but let's give it 5 minutes. Let's assume. Then he's got to get a shower, right?
Hopefully.
And yeah, you shower up for the day, and you get into the shower, and you're not wearing the CPAP machine in the shower, right?
I would hope not. No.
So let's say that's another 10 or 15 minutes. So now we're knocking up against a half hour here. Then you've got to get dressed, and that takes a little bit of time. Even if you have somebody to help you do it, and there are people who are there to assist and lay out his clothes and that kind of thing. So maybe that picks up a little time, but then you get a little bite to eat on the way out the door, and then you're headed to the chopper. So, at the very minimum, it would seem to me you're talking an hour from the time you got up to the time you walked out the door and had your first encounter with reporters. Why would those mask marks still be there?
Unless he's just wearing it way too tight.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't see how that I don't see how they should have still been there. I mean, I have worn a mask like this. I've worn other kinds of masks, and generally within about 4 or 5 minutes, the marks are gone. Especially if have gotten up and taken a hot shower.
Maybe he's a nighttime showerer.
I don't know what the deal is, but I'm telling you this: I don't think we're hearing the straight truth about this. I really don't, and I think there are many questions that need to be raised about these marks. Was he getting oxygen just before he walked out the door? That's what I'm wondering. Just saying. 58 minutes now past the hour, 4 o'clock. Well, we'll talk more about this in the 5 o'clock hour, I assure you. Let me tell you about the folks over at Stoltzko. If you're in the market for a pole barn, the two brothers that run Stoltzko are the two guys that you really got to talk to. Exceptional quality, craftsmanship, and prices. They can build your new pole barn to your specification with your needs in mind. That's the Stoltzko difference. You can use pole barns for all kinds of things. It can function as a classic tool and work barn, a garage, or even a place to live. Flexibility is key. They combine the classic post-frame barn look with the reliability of modern materials and the techniques to give you a finished barn that will withstand the test of time. They don't scrimp on quality. They don't cut corners. They believe their customers deserve only the best. So why don't you go to their website? It's stoltzco.com. STOLTZCO. I'm going to give that to you again because I messed it up. STOLTZCO.com. Give them that. Take a look at some of the things they can do for you. Here's the number, 615-622-5992. They will even give you an estimate right over the phone. Talk to them. Look at that website, stoltzco.com. You're going to not believe the things that they can build. It's not your granddaddy's pole barn. I can promise you that for sure.
It is 5 o'clock. I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. An excessive heat warning beginning tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. until Friday at 8 p.m. Right now, it's hot, 94 degrees. Complete weather forecast, latest traffic report coming up 5 minutes. The Supreme Court leaving some of its most controversial decisions for last. A new round of rulings will be out tomorrow morning. Here's Lindsay Watts.
The Supreme Court has 7 cases left, including one on affirmative action, looking at whether colleges and universities can keep using race as a factor in admissions. Another big case will decide the fate of President Biden's student loan relief program, and many eyes on a case about whether businesses can choose not to serve LGBTQ customers, citing religious reasons. Chief Justice John Roberts says the next round of decisions will come Thursday morning, but he didn't say that will be the court's last day, so it's still possible rulings could come Friday as well.
Right now in Tennessee, this extreme heat in the mid-state this week could cause rolling blackouts like there was last year during Christmas time because of the extreme cold. Here's Channel 4's Marissa Sulik on what the TVA is doing right now to prepare.
They say they are checking equipment to ensure it is ready to go. They're also making sure they have contracts in place to purchase power needed from utilities as backup. The TVA doesn't expect record demands this week. They think the state will use about 30,000 to 31,000 megawatts. And in a dire situation, that number is closer to 33 to 34,000.
And the TVA said they won't promise no rolling blackouts, but they said they've done everything they can to best prepare. Baby boxes. News 2 says that a woman raised money and has brought in the first safe haven baby box to Middle Tennessee, specifically to Hendersonville. These boxes are outside of a fire station or a hospital and immediately notify officials when a baby is put inside. The first baby box in the state was placed in Knoxville and came to use for the first time last month. And the baby boy that was put inside that box was believed to have been less than 30 minutes old. And the cost to install a box is around $23,000, and the majority of funds for another box right here in the mid-state have already been raised. Thick plumes of Canadian wildfire smoke still engulfing swaths of the Midwest. They're expected to linger, and then that smoke will spread east. Alex Perez.
That scene, that skyline that we usually see has been completely swallowed up by that smoky haze. Now, I checked the air quality index here in Chicago, and it is slightly better today, but we are still in the unhealthy category, which is where we were all day yesterday. And it's kind of unclear when exactly the air will return to those safe levels that we're used to.
And here in the volunteer state, the air quality at a good or green category. That is the latest news. Traffic and weather on the way. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. 7 minutes now past the hour of 5 o'clock. We're into hour number 3 of the drive on this 28th day of June. Let's see, I got 92 degrees here in Nashville right now.
93 is my reading, so.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
I'll go with yours because it's bigger.
Well,
and
I don't know about that's a good thing or not.
Here in bucolic Watertown, let's see what we got here. It's 87, a little cooler. Had to get out and I mean, with all that rain we had, I had to get out and mow the yard. Boy, I'm telling you, the grass was thick today.
Yeah, doesn't take long.
The neighbor's out. I'm out there in my little zero turn mark, going across the yard. Neighbor pulls up in his tractor and starts, harvesting the hay for the season in his lawn.
Wow.
He's got a couple,
right.
2, 3, well, a whole bunch of acres over there behind me. So I felt I had tractor envy. There's no doubt about it.
Just don't look.
Just don't look. But I don't need a tractor that big. I really don't. Well, let's get busy here, shall we, huh? The thing that I keep coming back today, and I think this is the big story, I don't care how you look at it, the President of the United States is losing his mind. There's no other way to describe what's going on. Now, two things have happened. You heard me talk about it a few moments ago. The President of the United States, he gets up, has breakfast, does whatever he does in the morning, getting ready to head to the chopper because he's got a big speech in Chicago. And out the way the door, they take a picture of him with a I guess it's an iPhone or somebody got a picture of him up really, really close. And you could see strap marks, indentations of strap marks on his face. Which immediately they had to answer the question, well, what's that? Well, it's a CPAP machine. Now, the White House says this is previously disclosed. If it's been previously disclosed, quite frankly, I don't recall hearing about it. I really don't. But one way or the other, I'll give them the benefit. Maybe it has been discussed, and it just got past me. But I don't understand how you go through your morning routine and you get to you get ready to get on the chopper. You've been up at least an hour, and that the marks are still indented in your face. But you got some messages about that, Chris, from people who have used the CPAP machine, and they say that's not uncommon.
Yeah, I have actually. It's several people have said that just sometimes it happens, and if you have a certain shaped face, maybe you have to tighten it a little tighter. It leaves the marks longer, or perhaps maybe if you're not properly hydrated or as you get older, I guess your skin loses some elasticity.
Pliability, right. Yeah, elasticity, that's the better word. Yes,
so I guess maybe that could be a factor as well.
All right. So if you want to see this, go to yourfarm.com. You can judge for yourself. To me, it doesn't make a lot of sense. My experience with wearing masks is that, generally within an hour, those have gone away. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm just completely wrong about that. The other thing that is while he's there, he's talking to reporters, and there's two things that happen. Number one, he starts talking with them about the situation in Russia with regard to the Wagner Group and what's going on there. And in the very first words that come out of his mouth, he utters an incredibly bad gaffe.
It's hard to tell, but he's clearly losing the war in Iraq. He's losing the war at home. And he has become a bit of a pariah around the world. It's not just NATO. It's not just the European Union. It's Japan. It's 40 nations.
But it was that first little part, first words out of his mouth.
It's hard to tell, but he's clearly losing the war in Iraq.
He's losing the war in Iraq. He's talking about Putin. Putin is not involved in a war with Iraq. Putin is involved in the war with Ukraine. I mean, how do you, that's just an incredibly bad gaffe. A man who prides himself on his knowledge of foreign affairs and foreign policy, not knowing who is who in that part of the world right now, especially, seems very troublesome. That he would, maybe just a bad moment. Maybe he just got a little confused. But every single time it seems that he opens his mouth right now, something really stupid like this comes out.
It's hard to tell, but he's clearly losing the war in Iraq. He's losing the war at home.
All right, so there is that. And then he was asked again about, well, what about all these whistleblowers are coming out and saying that, there was this message with you put out by Hunter Biden. They're trying to shake down this guy in China and trying to get a lot of money out of him. And Hunter wrote that you were there with him and that you were there, and with you waiting for a phone call to get this matter resolved, this thing that you wanted done, that you were disappointed in. I tried to ask him about all that, and he tripled down again, saying he had no knowledge of any of that and was very vehement about it.
President Biden, how involved were you in your son's Chinese shakedown text message? Were you sitting there? Were you involved?
No, I wasn't, and I don't know.
Were you?
No.
Well, I mean, he was very adamant. This is the third time he's gone to the mat saying,
No.
In fact, very forceful.
No.
That's not no. That's not a mild no. That's a forceful, vehement no.
No.
There you go. So there's that. And I'm telling you, the text messages, the WhatsApp text messages that have now come out, and there have been a couple of them now, are incredibly damning to this investigation that seems to suggest Hunter Biden was going around and selling his father's influence and making claims on behalf of his father. How many of these things are going to have to come before we decide that maybe this needs to be investigated a little bit further? Tristan Levitt speaks on behalf of one of the IRS whistleblowers in this particular case. And by the way, one of the whistleblowers is making an appearance on Brett Baer's show as we speak to talk about this matter. Here is what Tristan Levitt is saying about this whole matter, that basically IRS and FBI whistleblowers were told, we just can't go certain places in this investigation.
Absolutely. So, for example, the text messages that have been coming out, they're from WhatsApp, actually, as a result of a warrant that the IRS served on Apple for the contents of the iCloud backup for Hunter Biden. Those are a clear example of something where there's a financial nexus. There's something for the IRS to investigate, and prosecutors told them, no, you can't ask any questions about the dad. You can't follow up on those. The location, for instance, geolocation data of where they were sent from.
Now, that's an important question. And can't ask about the dad. You can't ask about the big guy. We're not allowed to ask that question. Well, why not? Why can't we ask that question? Why was that not a legitimate line of inquiry? And why were they shutting down these lines of inquiry? The geolocation information is incredibly important because you've got this text message that Hunter Biden says, hey, I'm paraphrasing, I'm sitting here with my dad. We want to know why you haven't taken care of that thing you promised to take care of. I mean, we don't want this thing to spiral out of control. Sure would be a shame if something were to happen and it were to spiral out of control. I mean, it's a classic shakedown note from Hunter Biden. But on three occasions in the note, he talks about how the president, at the time, Vice President Biden, he's sitting right here with me now. And we're going to sit here until we get a phone call from you. I'm serious. So all you have to do to find out, did that really happen, is go and look up the text message and get the geolocation data from the text message, and it will tell you, were they in the same room at the same time or not? If they were in the same room, okay, I think we got something, right? Why would you not want to investigate that and find out? Because you didn't want to know the answer. You didn't want to know the answer.
There are a host of other examples that are in the transcripts that were released by the Ways and Means Committee recently, but they include turning down subpoenas and search warrants for the Biden family residence, for the Delaware residence. They include tipping off the Bidens for other searches that were intended to be done. In just a host of ways, prosecutors again and again limited the investigation and stopped investigators from doing what they needed to do. The individuals that were shutting this down were from the Delaware U.S. Attorney's Office. So the IRS was gung-ho, the FBI was gung-ho. It was the Delaware U.S. Attorney's Office where particularly a single assistant U.S. attorney kept saying, no, we're not going to be able to expand those other things. We can't look at the extent beyond just Hunter.
Wow, this part just grabs at me. The investigators, these are very experienced investigators. They think that there should have been some charges, felony charges brought, and that further lines of inquiry should have been opened. It wasn't them. They were all gung-ho to do it.
So the IRS was gung-ho. The FBI was gung-ho. It was the Delaware U.S. Attorney's Office where particularly a single assistant U.S. attorney kept saying, no, we're not going to be able to expand those other things. We can't look at the extent beyond just Hunter.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Well, there's all kinds of things that are happening with regard to this. Let me fill you in on a few of them. There we go. IRS whistleblower and Hunter Biden probe says he was stopped from pursuing investigative leads into the dad or the big guy. This is being reported on CBS News. Mainstream media has had to grudgingly go into this story because it's just getting to the point where you can't ignore it anymore. The New York Times has independently verified an IRS whistleblower claim that the DOJ obstructed a Hunter Biden tax probe they wanted to bring into California, and they were told, no, they cannot do this. But the New York Times, being the chickens that they are, entered that information into the public domain on their behalf in the 21st paragraph of the article. Buried it so that nobody would notice that we actually committed news here. We actually did some investigation. They don't want to acknowledge it. 21 paragraphs in. Biden again, as you heard him say very forcefully and very vehemently, he said no. He was not there during these messages where they were shaking down people. And so the whole thing continues to just spiral and spiral and spiral out of control. We're going to get more from the other whistleblower. We'll get the readout on that hopefully before the show is over about what the whistleblower has said on Fox News. And it appears that it's not going to be a very good run in the days ahead for the Attorney General of the United States. Because the Attorney General, Merrick Garland, has said, look, they had full authority in Delaware to do anything they needed to do. And then you have people in Delaware who have repeatedly said under oath, no, that's not true. No, that didn't happen. We weren't given the authority to do things. We were stopped. We were turned away. We did not get to investigate the things we wanted. So somebody's not telling the truth. And we'll hopefully find that out in the days ahead. Merrick Garland seems almost certain to be, he's certainly going to be impeached, it would seem, by the House of Representatives. 20 minutes past the hour, 5 o'clock on Super Talk. Grace Point Healthcare delivers medicine affordably with menu-style transparent pricing. You'll know how much it will cost before the care is delivered. Smart Care plans start at $69 a month. You get unlimited office visits and free basic labs for the entire year. And because they treat the entire family, even newborns, they offer family plans as well. You marry that with a high-deductible insurance plan, it could save you and your family hundreds of dollars. At Grace Point, they take their time with each patient. They see you the same or next day. No long wait times or crowded wait rooms. They treat naturally whenever possible. It is a military vet-owned practice. Just some of the reasons why it's been voted the best primary care provider by Toast of Music City year after year after year after year. Grace Point Healthcare on Main Street in Franklin, 599-6868. That's 599-6868. To schedule a visit.
Data from the first 3 months of using license plate readers here in Nashville has been released and analyzed. An arrest in Tennessee today in connection to arson and Madonna in the hospital. I'll have details at 5:30. I'm Mac Morey right here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Well, it is 24, let's call it 25 minutes past the hour. I'm interested in that license plate reader story, by the way. I think that's a fascinating story. I mean, certainly if you have a major crime that occurs inside of Nashville, and they were to be able to point how they were able to track down a suspect because of the license plate readers, that would make the case. You see, a lot of members on the council and the Community Oversight Board don't particularly care about the license plate readers, but other law enforcement agencies, and I'm going to get in trouble because a lot of people within the sound of my voice don't like the idea of the license plate readers. I'm not among them. It's okay, I'm allowed one controversial position, aren't I? So I just think that they have a history of helping people solve major crimes and putting bad people behind bars, which I don't know. I thought that was the purpose of law enforcement. No indication that they've ever been abused. Give me one example of where it's been abused, because we've not seen it. But I'll leave Mac to give you the details of the story. Maybe I'll talk about it a little bit later. There is an uptick in ticks spotted in Tennessee. Are those spotted ticks, or no, they've just been spotted in ticks? They've spotted ticks, and there's an uptick in the tick, apparently, population.
Good grief. I'm confused. But
tick
I'm
season
itchy.
Starting to tick me off.
Yeah, I got the tick willies over this one. Tick season is in full swing, but there are more of them in Tennessee this year because of the mild winter. I don't know. It wasn't that mild.
Yeah, I mean, especially right around Christmas, it wasn't.
Who in the hell thought this was a mild winter? I thought it was it was a hard winter.
Yeah, what?
Pretty rough, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Ticks are known to spread this is from WKRN, spread various illnesses to humans, including Lyme disease. They can also trigger a red meat allergy. I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's terrible.
I mean, you don't want to be allergic to red meat. Come on. The insects often stalk out their prey in shady, wooded areas and tall grass. Ticks are more closely related to spiders, so they hunt like spiders hunt. They like to lay in wait and ambush the things they are hunting. Unlike spiders, this is just creepy. Unlike spiders, they don't have webs, so they will either sit on a really tall piece of grass and hold their arms up above their little spider bodies in order to grab onto something as it comes by, or they'll drop down. I think that's where I get most of mine. I end up I'm like mowing through a branch of trees or something. First thing I do, get the tick willies. Did I get any ticks there? I don't want any ticks. But it is that season, and they say that I don't know. They say it's a bad tick season. Right. I don't know.
I'm staying out of the woods.
I've already had multiple on me. I go out every weekend in disc golf, and I'll see at least one on me every time.
Really?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not a big insect phobe, but ticks just really give me the creeps. I mean, because they latch on to you. It's like I used to go camping, had a camper and went camping a lot, and I got some ticks in some places where you really don't want ticks.
No.
And boy, that's not a fun day.
Local veterinarians have noticed an increased number of animal patients coming in with tick bites. We are absolutely seeing a huge uptick in ticks, says Dr. Josie Horshak, owner of Good Vets Nashville. I would say compared to last summer and previous summers, I've heard and seen more tick bites and exposures than previously. In animals, it can be lethargy, profuse vomiting, diarrhea, even joints that are swollen so the pet doesn't want to walk or stand. Those are the signs. So there you have, be aware of ticks. Honestly, we put on the collars, we do the medications, we do the whole 9 yards. So that's not a problem. I haven't noticed anything. Poor Grogu hasn't been coming in with a bunch of ticks as far as I can tell.
That's good.
But Grogu's life largely is lounging by the pool.
You have to go into those areas to get the ticks, right?
And that's such a prissy dog. I mean, that dog just, I mean, she does not want to get her feet, if like in the morning when there's heavy dew in the grass.
Yeah.
She doesn't want to go out there and tinkle. My feet are going to get wet.
She's special.
Bulldog. I'll tell you, a bulldog that lays out a lot of BS. That's what it is. It's 20, let's call it 30 minutes past the hour, 5 o'clock on Super Talk.
.5:30, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Excessive heat warning going into effect tomorrow through Friday night. This intense heat will sustain through the weekend, folks, so stay shaded and hydrated. Right now, 94 degrees on Music Row. Complete weather forecast and the latest traffic report coming up. License plate readers, the pilot program for LPRs in Nashville, has been going on for 3 months now, and we're seeing the first data. It's showing that areas with the most stops have been non-white and low-income areas. Here's Channel 4's Ryan Breslin.
The Community Oversight Board says that's concerning because it was stated that LPRs would be equitably distributed. However, they compared that to MNPD vehicle stops and say that those appear to be more evenly distributed.
In the 3 months, there were 733 verified hits across 4 quadrants. And if a license plate license plate reader matches with a plate in the database, it is qualified as a quote-unquote hit. And there are still 3 months left in the pilot program, and the board will continue to evaluate. Arson in Tennessee. News 2 says that a man was arrested today in connection with a house fire in Lebanon. The fire happened on June 8th on Canesville Road. The investigation found that the start of this fire seemed not natural. 27-year-old Ian Thompson was then arrested at B&A today when he was coming back from a trip. And some entertainment news. Madonna postponing her upcoming tour after what's being called a serious bacterial infection. Here's more from Jason Nathanson.
Madonna was in the middle of preparing for her upcoming massive tour, but everything's on hold. Her manager, Guy Osiri, says the singer developed a serious bacterial infection last Saturday and was in the ICU for several days. He writes on Instagram that her health is improving and a full recovery is expected, but she's still under medical care, and the tour and all other commitments are being paused. No word when things will be back on track. The tour was supposed to launch July 15th in Vancouver.
And that is the latest news. Traffic and weather are upcoming. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Well, let's talk about the Nashville Armory. 2 locations for your convenience. The Nashville Armory is at 4290 Kennelwood Drive in Nashville. They're over 15,000 square feet, which combines retail, classroom, and, of course, pistol and rifle-rated ranges, so you can learn to become proficient and stay that way. The second location, the Franklin Range at 390 Southwinds Drive. There you'll find 10 state-of-the-art shooting ranges equipped with automated target control and custom shooting stalls that provide a virtually private shooting experience. The folks who work there, they pride themselves on hiring folks with the expertise to advise even the most experienced shooters, but folks who also have the patience to guide those who are new to the 2A world. You'll find no attitude, no judgment, no pressure. Blacksmithing is back at the Nashville range. If you're buying your first gun or adding to the collection, you'll find a wide selection of new and pre-owned firearms, suppressors, optics, apparel, and shooting accessories. It's a place where you can buy, you can train, and become a pretty good shot. To learn more, go to armoryranges.com. That's armoryranges.com. And please let them know that your friend and radio buddy, Brian Wilson, sent you. Well, now there's all kinds of stuff coming out about this CPAP machine that the president apparently. Now I've read some stories that say that this is not new news, that it's just something that the press corps forgot about. I've never heard any mention of a CPAP machine that our president was using. So here's what is out now from the Washington Examiner. Indentations on President Joe Biden's face. You can find a link to this at yourfarb.com, where you can actually go and look at what I'm talking about. It's clear as a bell. Since 2008, the president has disclosed his history with sleep apnea through medical reports. White House spokesman Andrew Bates confirmed to the Washington Examiner. He used a CPAP machine last night, which is common for people with that history. In consultation with White House physician Dr. Kevin O'Connor, Biden started using the device in recent weeks to improve his sleep, per an aide. Oh, so this is new. Okay, so he has sleep apnea. That's known. He hasn't been using the machine. Now they're saying, but he used one last night, and it was advised that he start doing this by the White House physician, Dr. Kevin O'Connor. Lines were evident on Biden's cheeks Wednesday. No, his facial cheeks, as he answered questions from reporters on the South Lawn before traveling to Chicago for an economic address and fundraiser. O'Connor last provided an update on the president's health earlier this month when he advised the public that Biden had undergone a root canal at Walter Reed National Military Medical Center. He was not put under general anesthesia, and therefore the 25th Amendment was not invoked. He received local anesthesia for the procedure and went forward without having to hand over the reins of power to Kamala. You know, I bet you if you're the president of the United States and if you're Joe Biden and you need a root canal, you give me the General Ann. That's what I'm not. I don't need to go out. I don't need to be on any of that giggle gas. Don't give me none of that, because you might wake up and not be president anymore if you invoked certain elements of the 25th Amendment. I don't know. After the second physical of the presidency in February, O'Connor described him, and this is how he described him: healthy, vigorous, 80-year-old male who is fit to successfully execute the duties of the presidency before he seeks re-election next year. O'Connor's previous reports have detailed Biden's irregular heartbeat, high cholesterol, acid reflux, seasonal allergies, spinal arthritis, and a hot-cold sensation in both of his feet. For those issues, the president prescribed high blood pressure and blood thinner medications, supplemented by allergy medicine. He also had a cancerous lesion removed from his chest in March. So it's not a completely new story. I mean, not a completely old story. It is, yes, they have mentioned that he struggles at times with sleep apnea, but apparently moving to the CPAP machine is something that has just happened. I wonder what motivated them to up him to the CPAP machine. Because, I don't know. Other stories that are breaking late in the day. Hunter Biden invoking my father resulted in millions flowing from a Chinese Communist Party-linked company. You ready for this? From the Washington Examiner just a few minutes ago. Hunter Biden's threatening messages invoking my father resulted in a swift agreement being signed between President Joe Biden's son and a Chinese Communist Party-linked company, and millions of dollars flowing to Biden family accounts. The bombshell new WhatsApp messages between Hunter Biden and key intermediaries with the since-defunct Chinese energy conglomerate CEFC, whose chairman Yi Jianming is tied to the Chinese military. The messages were revealed by an IRS whistleblower. Hunter Biden sent messages to Chinese businessman Henry Zhao on July 30th, 2017, in which he leveraged his father's name and threatened CEFC executives unless a lucrative deal was worked out with Yi, whose biography has said he has been Deputy General Secretary of the China Association for International Friendly Contact. Well, it certainly is friendly contact if you're given the former vice president millions of dollars. The newly released messages provide key context to previously discovered foreign bank transactions involving Hunter Biden. Within days after the president's son's name dropped his father, his president's son name dropped his father in a text threat. Hunter Biden and his associates received an estimated $5 million in payments from CEFC, with Chinese payments quickly beginning to roll in, according to bank findings from a 2020 Senate report. This is what he said: "I'm sitting with my father, and I would like to understand why the commitment has not been fulfilled. You made a commitment, you made a promise to us. I'm very concerned that Yi has either changed his mind and broken our deal without telling me that he's unaware of the promises and assurances that have been made but not been kept." Wow. I mean, the stuff that is out there is just truly quite remarkable. This is also late in the day reporting from FoxNews.com, quoting Senator Lindsey Graham. U.S. attorney in charge of Hunter Biden probe was briefed on FBI form detailing Joe Biden bribery accusations. Burisma executives allegedly told the source $5 million for one Biden, $5 million for the other Biden. The U.S. attorney who led the federal investigation into Hunter Biden was briefed on the key FBI form that contained allegations that then Vice President Joe Biden and a foreign national were engaged in a criminal bribery scheme that involved influence over U.S. policy decisions. the top Republican on the Senate Judiciary Committee, revealed Wednesday. Senator Lindsey Graham, Republican of South Carolina, the ranking member of the Senate Judiciary Committee, sent letters to Attorney General Merrick Garland and the Trump-appointed Delaware U.S. Attorney David Weiss, who led the federal investigation into Hunter Biden, demanding answers amid allegations from whistleblowers suggesting the probe was slow-walked and influenced by politics. Graham wrote to Garland and Weiss separately, seeking information on the alleged politicization that influenced decisions throughout the Hunter Biden probe. Now, this is serious stuff. This is starting to gain steam. This is starting to pick up a little pace. That you have IRS and FBI whistleblowers all telling the same story. By the way, when you look at somebody who gives you testimony and gives you information, you have to look and say, well, what is their motivation? I mean, are these people known to be overtly political? No, not at all. They're not. But what they don't like is the fact is they were able to have built a pretty strong case, and the case pointed the finger at not only Hunter Biden but at now President Biden. And they wanted to go in and investigate certain lanes of information, and they were told, no, you cannot do that. They wanted to open up certain investigations in different parts of the United States, and even though the Attorney General said that David Weiss had the authority to do that, he could do it at will, as you dig into it, you find out that what people are saying is no, that they would not allow it to happen. Wasn't going to happen in D.C. There's a spate of stories that said it wasn't allowed to happen in California. So they just shut it down. How in the world can this happen in our country? And these whistleblowers that are coming forward, they have no motivation except to get the truth out. And the other people who apparently were standing in the way, they had political motivations. Politics should never come into play. You are supposed to investigate without fear or without favor. You're supposed to go down and, here's where the evidence leads us. Well, we're now finally getting the evidence, but it's not because the Justice Department did the job. It's not because of anything the FBI did, not because of anything that the IRS did. The only reason we're getting the information now is because the House Intelligence Committee, the House Oversight Committee has subpoena power, and they're getting documents, and they're talking to some of these whistleblowers, and they're getting the straight stuff. Had it not been for the way, we wouldn't know any of this if it had not been for the fact that the House changed hands and went from Democrat to Republican in the last midterm election. That narrow margin that Republicans have is all that is responsible for this stuff starting to get out. We're starting to get the information. We're starting to get details of exactly what was going on. And if the election had gone the other way and the Democrats had been able to hold on to the House, none of this would be coming out. Not one bit of it would be coming out. So, it is by a very thin margin that we are now have the ability to issue subpoenas, to get information, to conduct parallel investigations. And as soon as that happened, we begin to hear all of these stories about whistleblowers who said that they got turned away each and every time they tried to bring a case for consideration. Something that the Attorney General said did not happen. So here's what's going to happen. I mean, these things are going to be looked at very closely. We got Christopher Wray coming to the House of Representatives before long. He's going to answer questions. Looks like we're going to have some of the whistleblowers coming and testifying before long, and they're going to be able to ask a lot of questions. And it'll be interesting to see whether Democrats try to defend the Biden administration, or, as I suspect, as things start to get uglier and uglier for Joe Biden, and they look at his numbers and they see he may not be able to win this thing, it's not looking particularly good. Will they simply sit there and say nothing, the Democrats, and let the president twist in the wind. I think that's a very distinct possibility. So when I tell you this is a story unlike any I've seen, I can't remember a story that had this much potential in a long, long time. This is Watergate level stuff. This is major Washington scandal stuff. And again, it's only by the thin margins that we control the House that we got any of this information into the public domain. Because otherwise the Democrats would like to just keep this information from you, had no interest in asking the questions. And if they had gotten through the midterm elections and held on to the House, we still wouldn't know about it. Still wouldn't know anything about it. 50 minutes now, past the hour of 5 o'clock. Busy bee, when you need heat or cold AC. Well, right now you need your AC. If it's not working, call that number, 775-7833. They will buzz over to your house and get you up and running. Man, they will take care of you. If you need just a fixing, that's what they'll do. They'll fix. You may find at some point that you need to replace your system. They're not designed to last forever. And if that is at the time you've reached, well, then you're not going to find a better place to get a replacement systems on your HVAC or plumbing systems than Busy Bee. Now they have this thing called the Beehive Club. For as little as $99, you get 3 thorough maintenance services on your systems, one aimed at heating, one aimed at cooling, one aimed at plumbing. No overtime charges 24/7 and 10% off all repairs. Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling is your official Rude Pro partner. Again, that number, 775-7833, online at busybeehvac.com.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. Have you ever thought about why we invest in the stock market? Well, you often hear because we want to protect ourselves from inflation. Well, what is inflation? It's prices going up. Who's raising prices? Companies. What do you own when you own stocks? You own the companies raising prices, so it helps protect us from that. The other thing is this. Think about the most successful people you know. They're typically business owners. And you get to be a business owner when you invest in the stock market. Now, if we think about the stock market, a lot of people worry about, well, what if the stock market drops and it never comes back? Well, this is another thing that I like to explain to people. If the stock market goes down and it never comes back, what does that mean? That means that earnings went down and they never came back up again. So earnings went down. If earnings go down, what else goes down? Taxes go down. If taxes go away, what else goes away? The government goes away. If the government goes away, the FDIC goes away. So think about it. Everything is built on the stock market. That's why I don't ever worry about the stock market going down. Everybody has the same goal in mind when stocks go down. Get it to come back up because we got to get earnings to come back up. Now, you have 2 things at your control to get earnings to come back up. One is sales. We can change what we're selling or sell more of whatever we have if we can. And if we can't do that, we can reduce our expenses. And that's exactly what companies do. You'll notice that they lay off people when things get bad, and hence that is why the stock market has recovered from every downturn throughout all of history. Now, if you want to learn more about our approach to investing and financial planning, go to paulwinkler.com and set up a free 15-minute phone call or call 615-851-1950.
Let's talk about my friends over at DT McCall and Sons, 5 convenient locations in the Middle Tennessee area. They got exactly what you need for your house. I'm telling you, if you've been to one of these stores, you've got to go by. You go to some of these stores and you think, well, I've seen it all. Then you turn a corner and you say, well, no, I haven't seen it all at all. There's a whole other place here. Then you turn a corner and there's a whole other thing. I mean, and that gives them the ability to put up a huge selection of stuff for you to actually lay your hands on and look at with your own eyes. And I think that helped us. I know that the Cabana wife and I, we had different ideas about what kind of furniture we wanted, but we very quickly came to agreement on some of the stuff that we got because there was such a great selection to choose from. We found something we both liked. Free delivery and setup and haul away. How many times has someone purchased an appliance, paid extra for the cords of the hoses, paid extra for delivery, paid for haul away, and then you find out, well, that price they gave me is really not such a good deal after all. At DT McCall's, they give you an honest price, and the delivery, the setup, and the haul away is included in that. It's a family-run company, over 100 years old. You don't make it 100 years without treating people right. Why don't you find out about what all the buzz is about? Go see the folks at DT McCall and Sons for whatever you need for your home. Learn more about their 5 convenient locations by going to their website, dtmccalls.com.
It is 6 o'clock on this Wednesday. I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. 94 degrees right now and an excessive heat warning starting tomorrow through Friday night at 8 p.m. Forecast latest traffic report coming up. We're learning new details about the Wagner rebellion in Russia. A senior U.S. official says the leader of the mercenary group, Evgeny Prigozhin, contacted top Russian military officers and other leaders in Moscow before the mutiny, possibly to seek their help in the uprising. Kremlin officials are calling the allegations, quote, gossip. Patrick Revel's in Ukraine and tells us one of those generals denounced Prigozhin shortly after the uprising began.
We haven't seen him since then, and so the question is what has happened to him. Of course, there's a possibility that the U.S. here is trying just to sow dissent among Russia by putting out this idea that Surovikin was aware of the coup before it took place. But certainly, if it was true, it would suggest major dissent within the Russian ranks.
A sentencing today in Tennessee. The first man convicted in the Cobra Bar killing heard his fate today. Here's Channel 4's Michael Warwick.
The same jury that convicted Horace Williamson for the murders of Brandon Teal and Jamae San Antonio nearly 5 years ago today sentenced him to the harshest penalty they could. Horace Williamson was found guilty Tuesday on all counts for his role in the violent robbery outside the Cobra Bar. A jury agreed Williamson was the accomplice to the alleged shooter, DeMontre Logsdon, who will be tried separately.
And staying here in Tennessee, Fox 17 reports that a felon was arrested for having over 200 grams of marijuana and cocaine. Police noticed a car in a suspicious area with people on either side of that vehicle, so police later did a traffic stop. Daryl Humphrey tried to run away but was eventually caught and restrained by police, who also found a gun on him with $4,000 in cash. And Canadian wildfire smoke, it's still engulfing swaths of the Midwest, and it's expected to linger as that smoke will then spread east. Alex Perez is in Chicago, where he says the smoke has swallowed up the city skyline.
The mayor's office telling people, if you have respiratory issues, take this very seriously. Even simple things like walking your dog, or if you usually have activities outdoors, they're saying limit those, maybe move those activities inside, because they're afraid what this impact is going to have on some of those people that have issues.
And here in Middle Tennessee, the air quality is in the good or green category. And a benefit night is being held to honor the victims of the Covenant School shooting and to raise money for mental health support to the Covenant School community. And some of the biggest country stars will perform at the Grand Ole Opry House, including Morgan Wallen and Jason Aldean. The event will take place on August 7th, and tickets go on sale at 10 a.m. this Friday. That is the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Well, good evening, everyone. 7 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Brian Wilson in the chair for one more hour. They're handed over to Mark Levin, the great one. He will carry on for a while. A lot of stuff to share with you that you need to be aware of. And if you missed it earlier, our interview with Senator Bill Hagerty in the 4 o'clock hour, we will play that at 6:35 for you. So coming up in about 33 minutes from now. We'll have that for you. I think you've done the editing on it. Is it in its entirety or mostly in its entirety?
It is in its entirety, yes.
In its entirety. So we didn't take one word out, not one word.
Well, maybe one.
One word. Okay, well, maybe a couple of words. They take some of my out of there.
I wasn't going to say that, but
no, I just wasn't. No, you would never say that. Here we go. Speaking of things going on in Washington right now, there is a retirement talk surrounding Supreme Court Justices Thomas and Alito. They're getting up there. Clarence Thomas is 75, and Alito is 73. This week, probably by the time we get to Friday, we will already have made this term of this current session of the Supreme Court will be over for the year. They'll start taking, hearing arguments again in the fall, but no more rulings expected to come down after Friday. And so a lot of people now, that's the normal time people say, well, who on the court is getting up there in years and might be ready to retire? And Democrats are making a lot of noise, and they've been throwing a lot of rocks in the direction of Clarence Thomas and Samuel Alito of late. From thehill.com. Lawmakers are looking ahead to the 2024 election as a pivotal opportunity to shape the futures of the Supreme Court because of the possibility that conservative justices Clarence Thomas, 75, Samuel Alito, 73, could retire. Democrats are worried that if Biden loses and the GOP wins the Senate majority, it would allow a GOP president to replace both men with younger conservatives who could rule far into the future. The others that are on the high court are not that old. It's critical President Biden, who I feel confident will be reelected, says Debbie Stabenow, needs to be able to put more judges on the bench, federal judges, including Supreme Court. It's absolutely critical that the Senate remain in Democrat hands. And Stabenow is making this argument, even though she is scheduled to retire at the end of next year. She says that if Republicans flip the White House, a distinct possibility, and they also get the Senate and replace Thomas and Alito with younger conservatives, it would be devastating, she says, devastating for anyone who cares about privacy and their own personal freedom, alluding to last year's 6-3 Supreme Court opinion that overturned the constitutional right to an abortion and raised questions about other rights protected by the 14th Amendment. You know what? I will say, though, in this current session, some of the rulings that have come, they've not been overwhelmingly conservative opinions. There have been a lot of, even though you have ostensibly a 6-3 conservative majority right now, you really haven't seen a lot of 6-3 decisions. And I think that's interesting. So the Democrats are now putting out this is their fear message. And what this suggests to me, especially when you see the name Debbie Stabenow attached to it, you're talking about somebody who cares deeply about quote unquote abortion rights. And so then what they're saying is, we could be in real trouble here. We've already lost. We've already lost in the Dobbs case, and we need to be careful. If we're not careful, Republicans are going to basically lock up the Supreme Court for the next couple of decades. Yeah, from your mouth to God's ears. I hope so. That would be a good thing. Josh Hawley says that replacing older conservatives such as Thomas and Alito with younger ones would end up creating an enduring majority, but he cautioned that it's tough to predict how a justice's opinion might evolve over years on the Supreme Court. Republican appointees now hold a 6-3 majority on the Supreme Court, with Chief Justice John Roberts, age 68, emerging as the most likely swing vote since the retirement of Justice Anthony Kennedy in 2018. Among the Democrat appointees, Obama's nominated Justice Sonia Sotomayor at 69 is the oldest. Justice Elena Kagan and other Obama appointees 63. Ketanji Brown Jackson, who the president put on the high court, is 52. The other three remaining justices, Neil Gorsuch, 55, Brett Kavanaugh, and Amy Coney Barrett. Kavanaugh's 58. Amy Coney Barrett is 51. They were appointed by former President Trump. So, if it really is probably true, whoever wins the White House will probably have the opportunity to replace one or more of these high court judges. Now, I don't know that anything is imminent, but it's interesting that the Democrats are now starting to make this argument because they believe that they're going to have to scare people into voting against the Republican nominee, because that's all they got. Will the Supreme Court strike down debt forgiveness? This could come tomorrow. Highly awaited decision in the dual lawsuits over President Biden's student loan wipeout plan will likely be released no later than Friday as the Supreme Court wraps up its term. Biden's plan would forgive up to $20,000 in debt per borrower and could be a massive relief to millions of Americans who are likely to struggle when the loan payments are resumed in October. Supporters of the student loan forgiveness are bracing for bad news, and I think that's right, as Biden's plan may have a tough time making it through the Supreme Court's 6-3 conservative majority. This, according to TheHill.com. In recent years, the court's conservatives have increasingly struck down executive branch policies with major economic and political significance. They've ruled such policies require clear authorization from Congress. And yes, they do. Conservative justices also seem skeptical of Biden's power during oral arguments earlier this year, even though progressive legal scholars insist the president has a clear constitutional authority to wipe out the loans. Even so, there is a narrow path through which the Supreme Court could dismiss the challenge to Biden's debt relief plan without actually ruling on its constitutionality. The Biden administration contends the defendants in both lawsuits lack the legal standing to challenge the administration's plan. The court's liberal justices and Justice Amy Coney Barrett pressed hard on those issues during oral arguments. So, yeah, I mean, what they're going to say is, all right, yeah, maybe he has the authority, maybe he doesn't, but you know what? These folks don't have the authority to come in here and petition the court because they don't have standing. So if something goes awry on this thing tomorrow or the next day or whenever it comes out, I think it'll be tomorrow or the next day, then what you're going to have is you're going to have the argument probably revolve around whether or not the petitioners had standing to bring the lawsuit. But there you have it. Talk of retirements, Democrats using scare language to frighten Democrats and say, I guess frighten independents. What they're trying to do. And let's see, what else do we have here? I'm gonna use this one for the next few moments. Chris found this story. Apparently, it has to do with Bud Light, and they're not selling. They're down about 25% across the board, losing billions and billions and billions of dollars in overhead and value. And so now apparently they've been forced to resort to a giveaway gimmick after sales plunged another almost 30%, the largest dip yet for the weekend of June 7th. 28.5%. It's never been that bad. And why is it a concern? Well, because there are two times where Americans really go out and buy a bunch of beer. One is Memorial Day. That did not go well for them. The other is the 4th of July. People might have beer in their fridge, any day. But, I mean, if you're going to go out and have a picnic, you're going to have a party, going to have a barbecue, you're going to get some beer and you're going to put it in the cooler, right? You'll note, Chris, there was no Bud Light at the staff party.
I did notice that. Yeah, I was pleased.
Yeah. Well, but apparently the Bud Light's parent, Anheuser-Busch, will give you a $15 rebate during the 4th of July holiday. So if you go and you buy Bud Light and you take it home and you put it in the refrigerator, you'll then get a $15 rebate, and you can go back and get that $15 sent to you in the form of a check.
I think they'll do I think I read somewhere that they'll do a digital, like a gift card. So I don't know if that means like a Visa or gift card or whatever, but you can do it virtually. I thought this was interesting. I just did a Google search for Bud Light rebate and pulled up the site, and it's right there. And one of the questions that they ask you in the purchase information when you're filling out the rebate form, they want to know your gender. You can select male, female, or prefer not to disclose.
But there are only two genders. No, they don't want to go down that path again. I mean, really, honestly, I think they got hit twice, because I think, number one, they got hit by people who looked at this from the conservative viewpoint and said, enough already. We don't need this. This is an American beer, and we don't need Dylan Mulvaney being shoved in our faces. And I think there was some outrage about that. I think it's also true that there probably were some liberal beer drinkers who are upset with Anheuser-Busch because they have sort of folded the tent on this one and have decided that they're going to try to, make it up good to the conservative audience. So I think they maybe have lost a little bit of market share through that. It's a 1-2 punch, I'll tell you, not good for Bud Light. But, I wonder, if you could get basically $15 worth of free beer, would you go down the path of, if that beer was Bud Light, would you take advantage of it? Is really what we're talking about here.
It's a good question. Apparently they offered this during the Memorial Day holiday as well, but I wasn't aware of it at that point.
I don't know. No, it wouldn't change. I mean, I'm not gonna change what I believe for $15.
It wouldn't change my mind, but I don't drink Bud Light anyway.
Yeah.
So, there's that.
All right. Well, there you have that. Okay, it is now 20 minutes past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Let me talk to you about United Structural Systems. It's a company that works on foundation and structural issues on homes and businesses around our area. And they've got a great reputation, a really good reputation. And I don't want you to take my word for it. I want you to listen to what some of their customers have said. Let's listen to Constance. Excellent experience. The entire crew was professional and knowledgeable about their services. They put me at ease with the entire process. Jerry in Hermitage wrote, "This is the best crew we have ever had work on our house. The best I have ever seen. Very professional. Did an excellent job." Philip wrote, "This is a super professional company from top to bottom. Absolutely the most professional, proficient, and neat team of the tradesmen I've ever worked with. Lifted a front footer, which was involved significant digging and foundation work. When they left, you would have never known that the four men with heavy equipment had ever been there. Absolutely perfect." So that comes from Philip. So this is the kind of folks you want to do business with if you need to do something to your house. They understand it's scary. They're going to give you their best advice. And if you go forward, you don't pay a penny until the job is done and you're completely satisfied. They guarantee their best at USS, serving Middle Tennessee, Southern Kentucky, Northern Alabama, online at USSTN.com, or call this number and make a note of it. It's a new number, 615-488-7855. It is 25 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Coming up here in just a few moments, we will have a replay of a pretty good interview we had with Senator Bill Hagerty he's a junior senator for the state of Tennessee in the nation's capital. And he's going around the state as part of an economic tour. And we'll talk to him about that, and we'll get his sense about so many of the things that have been going on. What an eventful week it has been in Washington, D.C., and I want to sort of urge you to stick around and listen to it, because one of the things that's caught me by surprise, I think, was that he's discouraged. He's been there now 2.5 years, and as a junior senator, a freshman senator coming in, and the junior senator from the state, and he said, I can't believe how difficult it is to get things done. I can't believe how slowly things move. So he said it's good to be out talking to business people in the state of Tennessee where things move a little more quickly with a little bit more alacrity. But good conversation, and that'll be coming up at 6:35 after the news with Mac Morey. There's a party bus company down on Lower Broadway, according to the Tennessean, that has gotten 72 tickets. And so, when you see them go by, the Woo girls, they're all out there. You're supposed to have a permit for that. You got to have a permit to do that. I mean, you just can't just show up with a tractor.
You got to have a permit to woo?
No, not to woo, but to
haul the woos.
To be on a bus, those bus people have to be permitted. And apparently there's one company out there that keeps showing up, and they're not permitted, and they've been ticketed some 72 times from the Tennessean. One Nashville party bus company got 72 tickets for no permit. Here's what to know. One entertainment vehicle company's received the lion's share of citations in the months since the city of Nashville began regulating the industry. 27 companies received a total of 90 entertainment vehicle permits in the 2023 regulatory cycle, which are granted annually. Since the city of Nashville began regulating entertainment vehicles downtown, agents have issued approximately 100 citations, and one company accounts for the lion's share of them. Metro has issued more than 70 of the 105 citations to off-the-received entertainment transportation vehicle permits this year, and records show they did not apply for the permit. Permit? We don't need no stinking permit. We got a John Deere tractor here, man. Get out of our way. The Metro Transportation Licensing Commission is charged with the annual permitting process for entertainment vehicles after legislation granted them the regulation power in 2021. The 72 total citations issued to Off the Wagon were given in September, October, March, April, and May. The earliest citation date was September 24th, 2022. The most recent date was May 6th. Company received 9 citations in October, the most on a single day. Each ticket comes with a $50 fine. Well, there's the answer.
It's cheaper to pay the fine than it is to go through the permitting process, right?
Okay, so I can do one of two things here. I can apply for a permit and have you leave me alone. Maybe I get the permit, maybe I don't. Or I could just ignore your stupid permitting process, take the $50 fine, and move on.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that answers the question about why they're the ones getting hit so hard. And you know what? Might be the best business strategy out there. According to the Wagon Tours being represented by attorneys from the Blackburn firm, neither company represented for its lawyer's return request. The question may soon be answered as Metro goes to court in its cases against Off the Wagon Tours. According to the company's website, a group tour for up to 20 people starts at $480 during the week, $500 for Friday through Sunday. The tour is 1 hour, 45 minutes, and traverses a 5-mile loop through the Gulch, Midtown, and Lower Broadway area. So, okay, so you go out there, and one of these tractors is going to make you $500 just to be dragged around very slowly around the chaos in Lower Broadway. So 10% is a $50 fine. You get a $50 fine, my friend, and you still make $450 on that particular tractor. A promotional video on the website include a montage of slow motion clips showing passengers raising their koozie-covered beer cans and red Solo cups in the air, shotgunning foaming beer, and waving at passing vehicles. What?
Shotgunning.
Yeah. Well, that's the easy. And then they got a whole list here. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, Old Town Trolley Tours of Nashville had 18. I can't make sense of this graphic. But the big drag bus apparently have an entertainment vehicle permit. They've decided to go ahead and get the permit. But if the fine is only $50, it ain't going to stop a lot of people. I'll take that. Yeah, okay. The only problem is if you're on the party barge and they stop you, and do they stop the thing and send them back?
Just say ride's over. Yeah.
Yeah. Ride's over. Sorry. They don't have a permit. Well, I don't know. Interesting. 31 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock. Hey, have you noticed how unreliable things have become these days? Like when someone tells you it'll be ready at 4 p.m. and it's not. People are really tired of that kind of stuff. If you've had it with unreliable vehicle repair shops, then you should try Eurofix, because Eurofix turns unreliable into reliable. And Eurofix has your vehicle ready when it's really supposed to be ready, so you're not standing around tapping your toe and waiting. Eurofix repairs all European cars with a quality that beats the dealer without dealer pricing. You know, that's because dealer repair shops are designed to pay virtually all of a dealer's overhead, and that's a ton of money. Why would you want to pay for that? At Eurofix, reliable means a 3-year nationwide warranty plus a free loaner car with every repair appointment. Make sure you call ahead, as loaner cars are very popular. If you're tired of unreliable repair shops, come to where it's reliable. Eurofix, family owned for 24 years. Call 844-EUROFIX or visit myEurofix.com. That's myEurofix.com. "39 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock. Good evening, everyone. Into the last throes of today's Wednesday show. In a few minutes, we'll hang it up and hand it over to Mark Levin, the great one, who will continue on with his observations. And there's a good chance you'll call somebody a big dummy. It'll happen. Listen, earlier today we had Senator Bill Hagerty on the line with us. He's in Tennessee, touring and having economic development conversations with business leaders from around the state. We talked with him about that and some of the things that have been going on in the swamp of late. Here is that interview in its entirety from earlier today. So first of all, you are talking to business leaders out there. What are you hearing?
Well, it's been great to be back home, Brian. I'm talking with all of them about the growth that they're trying to undertake, the fact that, frankly, in Tennessee, we have it a lot better than most other states, but there's still challenges here that we're confronting, and those challenges have a great deal to do with failed policies from the Biden administration that are hampering businesses all over the United States. There I'm talking about the war that Biden has waged on domestic energy. I'm talking about massive new regulations, and, the fact that Biden is out, quote, touting his economic successes, when he set off the most incredible round of inflation that we've seen in 40 years, it's just like he's living on a different planet. That's not the world that Tennessee businessmen and women are experiencing right here.
Yeah, you have the president talking about Bidenomics, which I think has a negative connotation in my book. But he's saying, it's not working yet, but we're really, 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 really close. We're starting to see some signs that maybe soon it might start working. And they can't really point to anything that has been truly successful. And certainly we have seen, the average business owner seems to be really struggling just to stay above water these days. What about the labor market very quickly on that? Because I know everywhere I talk to people who are in business right now, they're talking about how they need people to work. Well, we have a lot of people who are available to work, apparently, but they're not working. What's going on with that?
Well, business owners are telling me that they're just tired of competing with the federal government. I was talking with one of our leading Tennessee businessmen earlier this week, and he was telling me about how he had an employee for a number of years. The fellow figured out after an injury, although he's been able to overcome that. He had a stroke, but he was able to find a way to get onto permanent disability. Just there's so many programs now that people can get onto very easily under this administration, and there's just this culture now that has been, I think, deepened significantly with all these stimulus dollars, et cetera, extensions of unemployment, telling students they don't have to pay their loans back, all of this government largesse that's being passed around that's created among certainly not every worker in Tennessee, but among some, that they're better off, finding a way to get the government to tote the note for them, to get the government to foot the bill, and not to work. And that's just a terrible sort of mindset to be incentivizing here. I mean, there's real dignity to work, Brian, as you and I both know, and that's the path upward in America. You talked about the success that Biden is touting. I think the only real success that Joe Biden has had with respect to the economy is this Orwellian mischaracterization of numbers that the media tends to pick up on. I mean, he's going around and touting the fact that inflation is down. No, inflation isn't down. It's just not growing as rapidly as it was when you set it off. They are basically repackaging, quote unquote, everything, talking about all this job creation. The vast majority of the jobs that he's taking credit for are just people coming back to work after the pandemic. This is not anything that Joe Biden has done. It's in spite of what Joe Biden has done. If you think about it, he's complaining about the Trump tax cuts from the 2017 jobs and tax reform bill. The biggest beneficiary of the tax cuts under President Trump were the lowest income Americans. People that got the lowest increase, so obviously the lowest benefit as a percentage, were the higher income Americans. But in the Biden world, everything gets flipped upside down. Everything is misinformation. As I said, it's like George Orwell was writing the script for Joe Biden.
Well, speaking of our president, before he headed off to Chicago to give his speech, he was stopped outside the White House, just outside the White House door before he got on the helicopter. And I don't know if you've heard this or not, Senator, but I'm going to play it for you so you're up to speed.
Okay.
He was asked a question about Russia, but listen very carefully to his answer.
It's hard to tell, but he's clearly losing the war in Iraq. He's losing the war at home.
Did you catch that? He was asked about Russia, and he said, well, they're clearly having trouble. And then he went on to say, they're losing the war in Iraq. The president clearly misspoke again. These things keep coming out every day. It's like, what's going to happen next? What kind of thing is the president going to say? What is the sense in Washington right now about whether or not we have a president who's in charge and able to make the tough decisions like he might have had to have faced this past weekend with Russia and what was going on with the Wagner Group?
Yeah, it's been a concern since back in the campaign, Brian. And neither you nor I wish any ill health to Joe Biden. I feel sorry for any health ailments that he's got. But he's the commander-in-chief of the United States, and he was running for that position from his basement back in 2020. They did everything they could to shield him from criticism, to shield him from scrutiny, to shield him from exposure to the American public, and then they turn around and expect the American public to vote for him. There's so many things that they buried. We're finding out about Hunter Biden's laptop, more and more, the things that we should have known that we didn't know. But they do everything they can to keep Joe Biden out of the mainstream. They've got these unelected staff that are all retreads from Obama that are back in office again, and they're pushing this ideological agenda, and Joe Biden seems to me to be just going along with it. I think he is just, a figurehead in many, many respects, as opposed to the person that's really, knuckling under, making the tough decisions, et cetera, et cetera. And when we hear this misspeaking taking place, you get the White House staff comes back and, walks it back 4 times now. He said that the United States would come to the aid of Taiwan if China were to, come across the Taiwan Strait into Taiwan. And each time the White House staff, well, no, he didn't really mean that. I mean, this is not the way to run the largest, most significant country in the world. Yet this is the type of leadership we've got.
Well, and yeah, that's and look, there's some evidence that suggests that there was a pay-to-play scheme. It seems that Chuck Grassley and James Comer over in the House Oversight Committee are coming up with good data. You've got whistleblowers coming out with, again, more stories today suggesting that the investigation that was conducted into Hunter Biden didn't go very far because there were a great number of times where the Department of Justice shut them down. What's going on in this country if that's allowed to happen, where the DOJ says, I'm sorry, no, you can't investigate that matter?
And Brian, back last year when I had Attorney General Merrick Garland in front of me, I just posed a question to him. I said, how do you do this? How do you as Attorney General investigate your boss when he has the ability to fire you? If you want to keep your job, that's pretty tough. He assured me, no. This Mr. Weiss, the U.S. Attorney from Delaware, has complete authority. And I'm staying out of it. The White House is not involved. He's got complete authority to prosecute this as he wishes. Then we find out from the whistleblowers, who have no incentive to lie. In fact, they have every incentive to just stay quiet. The whistleblowers come forward, and again, there are multiple whistleblowers corroborating one another, that indeed the political appointees at the Department of Justice were stepping in, were shutting down the investigation, were constraining it, letting the statute of limitations run out. It sure seems to me that what the Attorney General said doesn't square with the truth, and that is a huge problem for him when you think about that. So
what? When I hear people, though, when I talk to people about it, and I tell these stories every day. I mean, just about every day there's a new development, a new drip to the story, and people say to me, "Yeah, but Wilson, nothing's going to get done," and I have a hard time coming back with a good defense on that. What would you say?
It's far more difficult to get things done than I ever imagined, Brian. I'm not a politician. The first time I ever ran for office was for the current position I hold. I've been there for 2.5 years, and I've just been in shock at the power of this unelected bureaucracy and about the friction that they can put into play. When you see a business person like me coming in, you want to see results, and all they do is try to stymie that. And they take a real position. They're putting their finger on the scale. But you see things happening as slow as possible, as you say, drip, 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 when it comes to the Democrat commander-in-chief, but when it comes to his main opponent, Donald Trump, they're accelerating everything like crazy. And the American public's too smart for this. They see this two-tiered system of justice unfolding. I think we're sickened by it. It's something that I don't think the Democrats are going to be able to maintain politically, but it's something that we've got to push back on this unelected bureaucracy that have given them the ability to do this for so long.
I'm making the prediction on this program that I do not think that Joe Biden will ultimately be the nominee for Democrats. But my sense of it, I'm not sure how it ends up being the case, but that they'll find a way to let him off the hook easily, and that somebody else will emerge. Who that is just now, I'm not real clear. But what's your assessment of what the Democrats might do across as you look across the aisle?
Well, it's very difficult for me to agree with that right now, Brian. Not because I don't think that wouldn't be better for the country, because I think you're right. But the Democrats have gotten away with pushing the pendulum so far left under Joe Biden. They're getting no resistance from the commander-in-chief. What you have are theologians and ideologues that are able to shove this thing as far left as they possibly can. I could not have imagined the amount of damage that they've been able to accomplish in 2.5 years, yet they've done it. So I think the extreme left is probably thrilled to have Joe Biden in office. From a practical standpoint, though, and I think this is probably where your mind is, when the Democrat political powers that be look at this and they say, look, Joe Biden's numbers are in the tank. Joe Biden's going to have a hard time winning the general election. That may be what moves them in the direction that you're describing. That practical reality of the fact that the American public just can't withstand another 4 years of Joe Biden, and that's going to manifest itself when the polls come out, closer and closer we get to the election. Yep. I mean, his number, he's upside down right now. So that may be that the politics of it may be the reason that some of the powers that rule in the Democrat Party may step up and come up with an alternative. Joe Biden has been so bad for the country, and again, the American public is got to wake up to this.
That was Senator Bill Haggerty speaking on the show earlier this afternoon at 4 o'clock as he tours the country, tours the state, having economic development conversations with business people. The thing that struck me perhaps is he says, I've been there 2.5 years, and I'm just shocked at how hard it is to get anything accomplished, and things move so slowly. You know, I was in the news business, and I thought that in the news business, things move very quickly. I mean, so quickly that you can barely keep up with it at times. And then I got into the business world for a short while, ran my own company, and I found out that was a lot slower. But, you know, the wheels of government turn even more slowly than that. 51 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock. How are you faring in this rough and tumble market? The experts at Beacon Capital Management understand it can be a little scary, but here's the thing. Beacon Capital Management has a plan to assess where you are and help you make any mid-course corrections that might be needed. Wouldn't it be great to have peace of mind that you're on the right path? Beacon can provide you that reassurance. It starts with a simple phone call. 615-488-9303. The experts at Beacon will take it from there. You don't have anything to lose except for all the worry. Get started today by calling 615-488-9303. At the end of the process, you'll be able to rest easy knowing you have a plan that meets all your retirement goals. Replace the worry with confidence that you're on the right path. Again, that number, 615-488-9303, and the experts at Beacon stand ready to take your stress away. Learn more at their website, askbeaconnow.com.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. Have you ever thought about why we invest in the stock market? Well, you often hear because we want to protect ourselves from inflation. Well, what is inflation? It's prices going up. Who's raising prices? Companies. What do you own when you own stocks? You own the companies raising prices, so it helps protect us from that. The other thing is this. Think about the most successful people you know. They're typically business owners. And you get to be a business owner when you invest in the stock market. Now, if we think about the stock market, a lot of people worry about, well, what if the stock market drops and it never comes back? Well, this is another thing that I like to explain to people. If the stock market goes down and it never comes back, what does that mean? That means that earnings went down and they never came back up again. So earnings went down. If earnings go down, what else goes down? Taxes go down. If taxes go away, what else goes away? The government goes away. If the government goes away, the FDIC goes away. So think about it. Everything is built on the stock market. That's why I don't ever worry about the stock market going down. Everybody has the same goal in mind when stocks go down. Get it to come back up because we got to get earnings to come back up. Now, you have two things at your control to get earnings to come back up. One is sales. We can change what we're selling or sell more of whatever we have if we can. And if we can't do that, we can reduce our expenses. And that's exactly what companies do. You'll notice that they lay off people when things get bad, and hence that is why the stock market has recovered from every downturn throughout all of history. Now, if you want to learn more about our approach to investing in financial planning, go to paulwinkler.com and set up a free 15-minute phone call or call 615-851-1950.